This meeting is being recorded by the Ways and Means Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. In accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. Okay? Now, roll call. Let's see. Councilor Forgy.
Here.
Okay. Councilor Torrendo.
Here.
And Councilor Golden.
Here.
Councilor Bottom.
Here.
And Councilor DeSorger, and I'm here. And we also have Director Schindler and Randy Austin and Director Warner and John Garrett. Yeah. Okay, so now public comment. Is there anybody in the public that wishes, oh, Randy, is there anybody in the, oh, before that we have approval of the minutes. We don't have any minutes. Public comment from anyone? And public comment from anybody? Okay. Public hearing, none. So first up is the fiscal year 2024 tax classification. Presentation from Assessor Randy Austin and Finance Director and Interim Chief of Staff Diana Schindler. Take it away.
Okay, well, let me start by saying first, I want to update you on the status of where we're at with our class tax setting or classification process. We have everything into DOR and we are waiting with bated breath for them to give us our thumbs up and approvals so that we can move ahead with the finalization of our classification recap sheet and all the paperwork we have to do for DOR. So we have submitted everything to them, and now it's just kind of like making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, and that's kind of what they're checking now. So it's unlikely, or it's not possible, I would say, to have the hearing tomorrow night to conclusion because the assessors should meet before and vote. You know, they're supposed to vote, make a recommendation to. So what I would propose and hope that might be possible is having a special meeting. The public hearing is posted, and I'd spoke to Clerk Scott, and she thought that we possibly could open the hearing and continue it to a date certain if there was a date that the council would, move it to on the floor. But then there also would have to be a special meeting called because we cannot wait until the third week of December to set the tax rate. It's just too. We just can't do it.
There wouldn't be enough time to get our bills out.
Yeah, those up. So we're hopeful. I mean, we could have it by the end of the day tomorrow, but it still leaves the assessors, really short time to basically get around it and basically make their recommendations, which is the process that we should have.
Mm-hmm. And, okay.
So I asked Randy to come tonight, even so that we might not have the hearing tomorrow night, but I wasn't sure whether you all would want to have another meeting before, so I just asked him to come tonight. The presentation that we would make would be, isn't going to change much. We don't present the rate basically at this hearing. We just present information about a split rate, about, whether you want to have a split rate. And generally we do, have an estimate of the rate at that time so we can give you some numbers. But last year when you went to your tax rate setting hearing, you went with a rate of like 22 something and you didn't get your rate of like 1965 until after that meeting and the tax rate was set. Mm-hmm. So, it's a similar thing. I don't expect the recap that I sent you. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the recap, mm-hmm. but I don't expect it to change off of that rate much because we've done, pretty tight estimates at this point. But it could be a couple cents, but I don't.
But you're expecting it to be around 21 something, right?
No, 2052.
2052. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And again, it could maybe go up or down by a penny, but unless you have, unless there was any kind of effort to try to, use additional money to lower the tax rate, which, hasn't been discussed, isn't on the table, but that would be the only way to change.
So,
Randy, did you want to go ahead and let you share your screen?
Okay.
Is that what you want to do, or what's your?
Sure.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
For sure.
Just to follow up on that, so you said we couldn't wait until the 30th of December. Could we approve it at our meeting on the 20th?
I mean, I meant the 20th, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
no, yeah, we have to have tax bills out by January 1st. So
Oh.
there'd be no way, like, it's almost physically impossible for us to get it done and get it to the printer and get them out on time. If we don't get them out by January 1st, we can't collect taxes till May 1st.
Oh. So we have to have a special meeting?
We'll have to have a special meeting.
Yep.
Sorry.
Not necessarily in December. I mean,
No, it should be in November. I'm going to ask for it to be on the 29th, or I'm going to recommend the 29th. It'll be up to you guys to decide, but it shouldn't really go into December. We'd ideally like to have it.
So my question is, if I may.
oh, sure, yes.
Why are
ma'am.
we, yeah, thanks. Why are we delayed? Why isn't this ready and prepared to go for tomorrow night?
I don't think there's any particular reason why we're delayed. I mean, last year, we were on around the same time the year before. You went in December, you were setting your tax rate in December. So, I mean, I think we got everything in a timely way. I think, obviously it's going to come out very soon that the values have gone up quite a bit. And so I think DOR just is spending a little bit more time looking at everything to make sure everything is in order. And I think also we have a new rep, Chris, at DOR, a new field rep or a new person that works with us. So I think that's part of it too, but I don't want to give excuses, but I just think that could be, everything's being scrutinized quite a bit more than what we, normally see with DOR, but I think they have a new person and, that's part of it. So.
What is the new person's name?
So after,
Paula King.
Okay, go ahead, Chris, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. So the intent of this evening's meeting is that we will listen to the chief assessor's presentation. Then will we vote this evening on our recommendation? Or does that have to wait until the assessors have met?
That's a very good question.
So you're asking a question about,
You need to put your computer on
I need to, okay.
yourself.
So you're asking a question about why this information wasn't ready. And just so you know how it works is it's not the council that tells the assessor when you want to have a meeting. It's the assessor gets the values approved, and when he's ready, he tells you that we're prepared to have a meeting.
Right,
So
that's
now,
fine.
traditionally, in many towns, the council wants to have it at a certain point, and we do our best to adhere to that. And that's what we were trying to do. But unfortunately, yeah, we're getting scrutinized a little bit more closely this year. Our new rep is sort of subjecting us to standards that usually we don't have to meet until a revaluation year. And so that has caused a delay. The shorthanded staff in the assessor's office since May and only recently getting a new person has also contributed to it. There's a lot of work that has to go into reviewing all of the sales and tweaking all of our values and getting everything prepared, to pass all of these tests that the DOR puts in front of us.
Yeah, but I think to Randy's first point, that is a good point. I mean, I've been in other towns, and generally when the assessors are ready, they tell the select board, put it on your next agenda, and the select board is meeting more frequently. So the fact that we're trying to fit it into a monthly, council meeting is, different.
So know that it is my goal to have everything done by October 15th, really, and ready to submit, but that did not happen this year. Part of it, like I said, is because we're shorthanded. Part of it is because the consultant group that we have is teaching me how to do these fine tuning to the values and looking at everything and knowing how to do basically what the consultant is doing. And that was part of our contract. And that also drew it out a little bit longer because we're going back and forth and making sure that I understand the process and exactly what we're doing. So I'm going to start out, if you
Okay.
could turn the meeting over to me. I could, I got a couple things I can show.
I'm very well aware of what happens and what it takes to get the tax rate set, and I appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
And to Christine's question, I just want to mention about the recommendation. So I think that, the information that we're talking to you about again tonight is about a split versus a single tax rate. So when Randy's done, I think then you can determine, whether you want to make a recommendation or how you feel about that. But that's basically that's the simple,
Mhm.
outcome is whether you want a split or a single tax rate. And I think, generally we always recommend, a certain way, but
There's one more person in the waiting room. Thank you so much. Okay. All righty. Well, go, take it away, Randy.
Yeah, I don't see it.
let me make you so I'm gonna let you share, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, you should be able to now. I made you a co-host.
The first thing I wanted to show is the LA4 comparison report. And what this does is it breaks down all of the different classes of property. 101s being single family, they have right here next to the explanation. These are all the different classes of property.
Ask you a question first.
Sure.
Do we put this in the file? It'd be a lot easier for me to see it and interact with it. Thank you so much.
Look at, and I can make others if anyone else wants to see. But it basically shows also the difference in the assessed valuation, the percentage that we raise, the different classes of property. If my finger mouse here would cooperate, I'm trying to show you the 101 difference. So 7.1% that we raised the single family values, condos went up 14%. The miscellaneous 11.5, you can see it all there, the different percentages that we raised. And that was all according to what we were seeing in the market. Some of the different classes of property, we have challenges because we're looking back, we're 2 years removed from the fiscal year of the sales that we're looking at. So for fiscal 24, we're looking at sales that took place in calendar year 2022. And so with certain classes of property, and in particular, I'm talking about the condominiums because we were seeing an increase there. But normally we don't have in that 1 year time frame, and sometimes if we don't have enough sales, we'll go to a 2 year range for the sales that we're looking at. And even that doesn't give us a complete picture of the different condo complexes that we have and where the values are going. We have 1 or 2 sales, maybe up to 4 sales in some I saw in one particular complex, but it doesn't give you a clear enough picture to forecast how things are going. So, and this is also another part of what took a little bit more time, is that we're looking and doing, instead of just a look at this 1 year, we did a 10-year and a 5-year look back at all of the sales in the condominiums. So we had to adjust the sales for time and then look and see the trend of where things were going. And that is part of what led us to making some more changes to the condominiums. And I'll show you some other statistical information later in my presentation that kind of back up the moves that we made. We did that with commercial and the 2 families also. And that was part of what took a little bit more time.
So you're saying that's a 1 year view at the end? Is that a 1 year view?
That is a comparison between fiscal 23 and fiscal 24. That's what it's showing. Here's the parcel counts and the assessed value in fiscal 23, and the parcel count and assessed value in fiscal 24. So you can see that we had $1,404,337,807 for a residential single family value in 23. And so we raised it by, $71 million. That was what accounted for the 7%. So yeah, it's just the values from last year and where we're coming in this year. So you can see most of them, you're seeing an increase.
Quick question.
Sure.
Does that mean that only 4 new single-family homes were built in the year? Is that what
Yes.
that means?
Yeah, because that went up by that much. So yeah, in fiscal 24, we had 4 new homes come on. Yeah, that's a good indicator.
And one,
you know-
one two-family less and no, wow. So it's-
Yeah, and unfortunately, that doesn't always tell you the picture. So we might have had a couple homes that were demolished. And I know that at least one that I can recall that we did, the house is no longer there. And it's not classified as a single family anymore. It's classified as, instead of a 101, a 130, which is developable land.
Okay.
And so those changes come in too, and it's not just a straight, you can't just do the math. You have to kind of know all the other factors. So it's a good indication, but we might be out by 1 or 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Just a quick question. So there's a huge decrease in industrial. Is there some
Yeah, I think that
overriding
we had,
factor for that?
let's see.
That's a huge negative.
And you can see that we had we lost 2 properties too. So the
What were they?
was 67 and now it's 65.
What were they?
And industrial, I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, it sounds like value's still went up though.
I was looking at the multi-use industrial.
Industrial.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's a
No, those
huge-
are chapter land.
Parcels?
Oh, chapter land, yeah.
Yeah, these they have to do with things that are in chapter.
What is that?
So chapter 61 is forest, it's forest land. So, and that's property that gets a big discount for being, preserved as this forest land. This is 61A, which is for agricultural. So you're growing some type of crop. It's a Christmas tree, it's cranberries, it's ginseng, it's hay, it's maple syrup. And then there's 61B, which is recreational, which just gives you basically a 75%.
That goes up like four bars up from there. Where it says agricultural recreational.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, and so these are, multi-use. So those are, it's a combined, it's part commercial and part industrial. It's multi-use. It's more than one class of property that are attributed to it. So it's a store that has a residence above it, for an example.
It's just extraordinary in our incredible inflation we've had to go down 40% almost. It just really stands out.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. So I'll try and give you the
And the
facts on that
apartment
one.
buildings, they did not increase the,
Yeah, the apartments. Yeah, by 2.6%.
so you're gonna send these things to everyone, is that correct?
It's part of my presentation actually, but I just broke this out as a separate page.
Okay,
Because this is part of what I don't have in there yet.
okay, thank you.
And the presentation will be available to counselors.
Yeah, once it's complete, I'll make it available to everyone as soon as possible. And afterwards, it'll be on the website for the general public.
Okay.
There's a question on how those are characterized as fiscal year 24. Are we talking the last 5 months? Because we're in fiscal 24 right now.
Right, we're in fiscal 24,
So-
which starts July 1st.
So those percentages are just for the last 5 months.
No, it's for
That's
fiscal.
projected.
Yeah, it's where they're going for this
Right.
fiscal year, even though it ends June 30th, we're setting the values now.
Right.
It's effective July 1st.
Right.
So what percentage is the CIP?
The CIP, it's about 27%, 26 point something percent, I believe. And that's also something, so I'm trying to get to the point where I'm sharing this other presentation, I have more of that info. And so this is my presentation.
You make it a slideshow, Randy?
Yeah,
Make it a slideshow, we can just get a preview of it. No, slideshow up top where it says slideshow on the
Okay.
bar.
where?
Up top and where it says slideshow up near home.
Gotcha, okay, yeah, well, this
The top line.
toolbar is blocking it
Slideshow?
for me.
Oh, you can't see it on your screen?
My
Oh,
That's fun to try to.
My Zoom.
There you go, though.
Oh, you've got your arrow on it now. Okay, so give it a little bit.
You can drag that green bar. You can drag the green bar.
Yeah, you can drag that toolbar out off of it.
If you pull up, it'll go down.
Ah, okay, slideshow, here we go.
Speak.
That's all right.
And then just hit from beginning and then it will start.
getting? Okay, how do I go to the
It should
next?
come up. Oh, usually just comes up, doesn't it? I thought.
Okay. All right, so here's the table of contents, and we're talking about the different things. It's the FY24 assessed value and prior year's value. And the different comparisons that we're looking at. So I'm just gonna get right into the meeting. There's a notification of it, and all the counselors and counselors at large.
Oh, we're not able to
Yeah, we're
see what
not,
you're
we're
talking
not,
about.
it's not working up here.
But I'm looking at something here.
That's
It's working for me,
really
screen
strange.
sharing.
Huh.
Froze.
Yeah, maybe it froze, maybe unshare it and then start, put it in a slideshow first and then start sharing it and see if that works.
This thing,
Oh, my computer nations.
it's doing
Oh,
something.
I don't know, I give up.
Good about it with me.
You might be extending your screen instead of duplicating it. So if you do Windows P, you can switch it.
Windows P.
Yep, so Windows and then P.
Tech support.
And then you got, where I click on there, it's right, the second one where it says duplicate, click on that. And that should make it so it's mirrored on both screens. And once you hit the present slideshow button. Ah, darn it.
That's weird.
It works when I.
Can you just slide down the bar so we can at least just see the slides on the side?
I guess so.
No, or is it just locked up?
Now it's locked up.
Or, so actually you could just turn it around and show it to us, but then people
Oh,
over
yeah,
there can't
then,
see.
right, the general public can't see.
Do you want to try to use a different computer? Do you want to try to use my computer?
Yeah, or send it to me and I can try, I mean, it's-
Let's just. Get you know. Okay, it's changed on my computer, but it is not.
Spacebar to go to the next slide. then.
It's changing here for me.
That's really strange.
must have to do something about the sharing on the Zoom for some reason. It's not picking it up.
Do you want to
Do
try
you have to click
to
the little use presenter view?
use my computer?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know if it'll work either, but it makes a shot. And I don't have to keep anything there.
Try this.
Okay. No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay, here we go. Ooh. Did it work?
it's on. Yay.
so here's a summary of our values by classification and then a comparison to the last few years. And our tax rate over there, the extreme right, where we ended up. And so comparing our total values for these different residential classes, commercial, industrial, personal property, the total values, here's our total exempt value. Meaning municipal and hospitals and schools and churches.
Wow, so the personal property,
You want more time on
I
that?
don't think,
And so, yeah, here's a breakdown, and you're asking, the residential value, 76%. And then 7% for personal property, 2% for industrial, 15% for commercial.
makes up the total pie, whereas
Yeah, the total
76
pie,
are.
right. And so, yeah, we're 76 residential and 24 commercial industrial CIP. That answers your question from earlier.
Yes.
Difference, yeah.
And then I started doing other value comparisons. And so, yeah, this is sort of a little bit of a summary of what we just saw with the LA4 comparison. It's not all broken down by the individual classes, but it's got the main classes, commercial, industrial, like all the condos and two families and single families are all together.
When are the parcel counts made?
Pardon me?
When are the parcel counts made?
When are they made?
When are they made? Like, when are they counted, essentially?
Yeah,
Like,
so for,
is it a finite, is it like every July 1?
yeah, it's for every fiscal year, it will change every
Beginning of
fiscal
it.
year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so basically, we're setting the tax rate and we're gonna set the way things are for fiscal '24.
Right.
And I'm gonna close out the year and do the year-end roll, what I refer to as a year-end roll, where I basically close FY '24, and that's how it is, because we've got everything voted on, and that's what it's gonna be. And then I can start fiscal '25 basically on my end and start doing adjustments where I'm adding new houses or taking them away that are changing those parcel counts. And then as of July 1st or this time next year, those are becoming finalized and we're looking for approval from the state.
Why did we set the rate now as opposed to in July?
We could set it in July, and there are some communities that pride themselves on being one of the first to submit. And you just have to have all your ducks in a row, and I think there may be semi-annual communities and not quarterly.
Exactly.
But I mean, we have the capability, if we are prepared and have
I'm pretty sure. for
staffing and have the work in, and if the budget is ready, because it's not just setting the tax rate isn't just what I'm doing, but it's what all of the departments and, you know, the culmination of the whole budget process.
Right, but there is a different timing schedule for semi-annual communities, meaning we are quarterly and we do preliminary bills. So we send out preliminary bills in the fall. They're not your actual bills. We send out the actual bills in the spring once we've set the tax rate.
To give people a
So-
heads up.
What's that?
To give people a heads up.
What do you mean?
Well, you send them a projected bill.
So we send them,
The final bill.
we send 4 bills a year, but we can't send an actual bill until we set the tax rate. So that's after January 1st. So the first 2 bills are just based on last year's rate
And
But if
referred
we
to
were-
as preliminary bill.
and preliminary, but they're just basically last year's rate.
We
Just
looked at
last
what you,
year's stuff.
we looked at what you paid last year,
It's the same.
and we basically divide that by 4, and that's your bill for the first and second quarter. But actually, what we do here in Greenfield, because we're trying to build in a little bit of an increase and make it more of a true quarterly amount that you're seeing, is we build in a little bit of a potential increase. So we actually look at what you paid last year, and then we divide it by 51.75, and then divide that by 2, and that is your bill for the first and second quarter. So that's exactly how we're doing it. And then that builds in a little bit of it, the increase in the first and second quarter, because all adjustments are made in the third and fourth quarter. So yes, preliminary bills, we look at what you paid last year, and why do we do that? Because we don't have the tax rate set, and our values aren't approved, and so we're doing that this time. And that's why in January, it's your first actual bill. You'll see it calls the actual bill, and your value is not on your preliminary bill. It doesn't say how much your land value is, and your building value, and your other value, because it's not set for the fiscal year yet. And that's why when it is on the actual bill, and when you get that actual bill, it's when you have 30 days from January 1st to apply for an abatement. And that's how the process works, and the significance of preliminary and actual and the abatement process. I always like to bring that up, because if anyone isn't happy with the value, that's the one time of year when you have 30 days to apply for the assessors to look directly at your individual property. Because I'm not going out and looking at every individual property when I'm making
Right.
my adjustments. I'm letting the sales tell me what has to happen. So I hear it from people sometimes, you know, I didn't change my house at all. We haven't done anything in over 10 years, and you're putting up a high value. Well, I don't have to. You don't have to do anything to your home for the value to change, because it's controlled by the market. So I'm reacting to what's happening in the market, and you're building, if I'm raising your value, I'm raising your equity at the bank too. So it's just the process and kind of how it works. So anyway,
Conversely, if there's an abatement, you would need to look at it, correct?
yes,
If there's an abatement application.
Yes, you would have to look at it, I would assume.
yes, an inspection is part of the abatement process. And the first thing that we're doing is looking at all the data that makes up your valuation, all the statistical information that we have on your home. We're saying how many bathrooms and kitchens you have and what condition they're in, the grade and quality of your house, the year that it's built, all affects the
See it,
depreciation
go
that's
to
being
it,
applied.
see it.
So for instance, let's say there's new construction across the year when it's assessed, and there might be an increase in the assessment, and the abatement is that, well, we're not done yet. So does that get followed up on like when it was done, or is it gonna have to wait for a revaluation year?
So you're actually talking about the opposite of the abatement, where there's an increase in value. So let's say we had a single family home and they bought the property on January 1st, and then they started building it. But as of July 30th, because we have adopted chapter 630 37, I think, where we're allowed to capture new growth up until June 30th. So, and this is why, because my assessment date's January 1st.
Right.
I assess things how they are as of January 1st. And that's why the owner, as of January 1st, stays on the bill for the entire fiscal year. But if there's new growth or there's things that are happening that are increasing the value, I can go and pick that up until June 30th. I can't go till June 30th because I have to create the bills and we want them done by the 15th, just like we want the bills done by December 15th in this scenario.
Sure.
And so what I go is I go out and look, and the house is only 40% built. It's a foundation. They've got the studs and there's, some rough carpentry, rough plumbing, and that's about it. So I establish a percentage of completion and apply it to the house, and that's the tax bill and what the tax bill is based on for the first and second quarter. But now it's November and they're in and they've got a CO, occupancy permit. And the value has jumped up because they did all the rest of the stuff. So I had it at 40%, now it's at 60% or 100% of the value. I can do what's called a supplemental bill. And so it's a prorated bill according to numbers of days left in the fiscal year on the new value. So it's a whole calculation that we look at the value. We're taking into account what was already taxed, but figuring out a per diem on the number of days left in the fiscal year that is applied to those days and applied as an additional bill that the owner will get, referred to as a supplemental bill.
Okay.
And so that's how we take care of increases in value instead of, well, they got a free ride until the next fiscal year. Those are things we can do. And that's something that is 59(2)D in the Mass General laws. And it kind of works both ways. So if we had a house that burned down and there was a big loss, like I saw one in a neighboring town in Southampton. And you see it on the news and, there's smoke and you can tell the black on this part of the house and that part of the house where the main fire was. Well, in this case, it was like a chimney and part of one wall and the whole rest of the thing was gone. And so that's a big change in value and they still had a quarter of the year left to go. And so they didn't have an assessor and I called just to ask, hey, do you know about 59(2)D? Because it works both ways. And so what they did is they reduced that bill for these people in Southampton after I brought it to their attention because their interim assessor didn't know. But that's what you do. And I've done it in other towns and would do it if the same thing happened here. If we had a decrease in value by more than 50% of what it was before, I don't have to get an abatement application. I can just do that automatically because of how the Mass General laws are set up. And it's set up to help people whose house burnt down. And you don't want to say, well, hey, your house burned down, but here's your fourth quarter bill. It's due 30 days, So another factor. So I didn't mean to get off on a tangent.
No, I was just wondering about the process in that case, it's kind of incumbent upon the inspections departments to be constantly rolling to and constantly on top of it, or else that's going to affect the assessments.
Yeah, and so we're monitoring the building permits, or basically the ones that are tipping us off about all of the improvements. I mean, you can't go out the next day after the permit because they haven't had the chance to do it yet, so we have to wait, but we're on top of that and doing the inspections as we go along. Now it's kind of a downtime because we have time to capture the value and get out and do the inspection, before June 30th of next year. And we have more important things like what we're doing now to set up, but we're constantly, it's just a revolving thing that we're constantly going out and doing our inspections. I guess, maybe not so much in the winter months when we have snow to deal with and you can't see everything that you need to see.
Right.
But that's something that's going on all the time. So here we are in the single family history. And it's showing the total value. And I go for a couple of years. This is where we were for 20, 21, and 22, and then where we were at with 23 and where the tax rate ended up. And it shows the different increases in percentage for the difference of the mean assessment is the average and the median is the middle. So if I have 100 sales, the average is the mean. And the median is the one that falls. It's the sale number 51, and 50 and 49, those are the middle, and that's what that median assessment reflects. So here is where I really wanted to show what is going on. So this is the single family value history from 19 to 23, and shows where we've gone from that the average single family value basically calculated by dividing the total value by the parcel count. And you can see where our average value has gone from 186 to 276. So a $90,000 increase for the average single-family home in the last 5 years. So I was the assessor in East Hampton, and I did a presentation like this, and I did a comparison of 5 similar towns: South Hadley, Wilbraham, East Hampton, Greenfield, and I chose, in Northampton, I chose Greenfield even though they weren't really part of Hampshire County, but because the tax levy was about $37 million, and that was the same as what we had. So the results showed that the average single-family home in most of these other communities, all 4 other communities except for Greenfield, was between 298 and 302. And for Greenfield, the average single-family value was 202. And so that sort of told me that I felt like that something was wrong and that maybe our values are a little behind where they should be. And maybe that's why in these last 2 years, we've sort of been catching up to the rest of the market. And so, you know, that's what we're seeing. And yeah, from 23 to 24. So last year, because we had the tax rate go down so much, yes, our values went up by 16.5% for single family homes. But because the tax rate went down so much, we saw only a moderate increase, a 2.79% increase. We raised values, again, not as much as we did the previous year. But unfortunately, the budget, you know, last year, what happened is we had the 22's budget was 37 million, the tax levy budget I'm talking about, not our total $78 million budget. But the amount that we raised through the taxable levy was 37,200,000. And then for 23, it was 37,700,000. So we basically stayed pretty level funded and only had an increase of $500,000 more that we needed to run the town for the year. This year, that has jumped. The numbers aren't the same in our budget. Our taxable levy is closer to 43 million. And that's why we're seeing the tax rate not going down, even though I'm increasing the values. So yeah, we're seeing the tax rate go from 1965 potentially to 2052.
Can you say that again? That seems like a very important, I don't know that I just caught what you just said, that
Basically, the levy went up.
Yeah, the levy went up. The amount that we
Just trying to
raised
say.
Yeah.
tax dollars, that's not supported through other
Tax
other funds.
went up by about $5 million, 37 million to 42 million-ish.
Yes,
Something
I
like
think
that.
around there.
4.3, it went up about 4.3 million.
Yeah.
I sent that on the recap sheet. That was all broken down on that sheet. I
You
sent.
know, and some of our support that we got from the state was not as generous.
Well, basically if you look at the recap sheet, you can see where the differences are. And so the budget, yes, the budget went up, but what really happened is the receipts went way down. Like we lost, like last year for the year before, your net cherry sheet revenue was like I think it was like 1.8 million. It was really, really high. And I think it had something to do with trends in the schools. And then this last year, our net cherry sheet revenue was $200,000.
Yes.
So that's like a loss of like 1 million dollars.
Right.
So a lot of it is the revenue side. I'm not, it's none of it's great, but I'm just saying, we are going to need to watch the levy going forward in the budget. But we really need to look at those trends and figure out what's going on. It was a big impact in our choice and charter assessments, and unfortunately, the Chapter 70 side didn't go up, as well. So it kind of just was.
And it's not the first time too, because I saw that and I started looking back historically to see, where, why was the big difference in estimated receipts, and that's just the way it goes. Sometimes it's higher and lower, and it depends.
Well, estimated receipts we had to take down because we have to be cautious about our cannabis revenue because the regulations have changed. And so we don't intend, or we don't expect to be able to continue to collect our impact fees. And we had those in the estimated receipts. So, that's another thing that's changed. And I also do want to mention last year, you used 600,000 of free cash to reduce the tax rate. So that
And
also
that
had an
helps,
impact.
yeah.
So collectively, that 600,000 plus another 600, it was like, $2 or $3 million that you had, which is a reflection of what's happening. But, and that, we couldn't, I was hoping that we could maybe do that this year, but we need to get some of that money back into the reserves and we have to pay down our debt. And that's what I put in, for the debt piece, So
yeah, you can see that between last year and this year for 24, with this proposed 2052 tax rate is that, the average single family bill has gone up about $600. And that's that 11.67%.
Is the next one a similar analysis for commercial and industrial?
No,
You didn't do those charts?
I did, but I want to do condos first.
Okay.
And you can see the history with condos. And this illustrates, now I said before, I'm going to show you something when I was talking about condos and the moves that we made, that I'm going to show you something else that's going to kind of back up what we were doing. And you can see how in the previous years, the moves that we made to condominiums and even for fiscal 23, we didn't make any really significant increases in their value. And that's why they had a reduced bill. They actually saw their bill go down, from the 3811 to the 3672 in fiscal 2023. And so now this is where we're doing figured that we needed to do, not only here, but also in commercial. And I think we did it with the 104s too, or any class of property that we're looking to make that type of move in that we don't feel we have a sufficient amount of sales. Then we're going to expand our range of what we're looking at so that we have really more information to base our whatever move that we're going to make, because part of everything that I'm doing, I have to defend when it comes time for abatement. And if people, they agree with me or they don't, and if they don't, then we're going to ATB, the Appellate Tax Board, and then I'm defending those values. And so I have to, before I go and make these changes, I'm not doing it arbitrarily. I'm doing it, and I have data to back up everything I'm going to do. And so when it comes time that I have to defend those values, I have my information ready, and this is why I did what I did, and I can show them. And if I'm going to make my decision, and hopefully what I'm doing is right. And, but if it's not, then I'm going to fix it. And, ATB really doesn't tell you about the whole class of property, only individual. But if you have enough individual properties of a certain type that are asking, for a review, then it might, carry more weight at the ATB. And so, yeah, this is where we went with the condos. This is how we ended up with the two families. And again, sort of the same type of thing. We can see over the years that they're just seeing less and less of an increase because we didn't really have, actually with the two families, we got a little bit more data. But it was something that, again, it really didn't, it wasn't coming through. So when we expanded the data and looked at more of it, we could forecast better what was happening. And this is really where we had to go to get our values to work with the way the sales were going. And then the next is the commercial. And again, the same type of thing. Now, a lot of the activity when I got here and the changes that we made on the residential side. And there was a residential market that had the majority of the things that were going on. It was all driven in the residential area. But also part of what happened is that it was just the value of everything's increasing too. So it's the value of the boards and the nails and the drywall and all the materials are going up too. And so that also comes through with the commercial. So I mean, it's not just the value of the materials for single family homes are going up. It's the value of every building is going up. And so that, and our land too. And that, again, we don't have a ton of commercial sales. So we're doing a look back to see something that was more of a trend to base the moves that we're making there. And so I didn't want to. Last year, we really kind of left the commercial alone because the bulk of activity over the last couple of years was happening in the residential market. But it also has it's bleeding over to everything. And so we did not only, we're not seeing it here, but we also did adjustments to the value of land and bumped that up a little bit. We have your building lot commands the higher, the lion's share of the value. So you have 2 acres, and 1 acre is your building lot, and that value is about $70,000. The other acre is worth, historically or in the past, was worth $3,600. And so we actually bumped up that value because it hadn't been moved in quite a while. So now excess land is going to be $4,000 per acre instead of the 36. So those are some of the subtle changes, and these are all things that we're doing because of our analysis, and then it's getting approved, and not just this year, but every year. My department, I think, is the only department, except for maybe accounting, because you're getting audited every year, right? And accounting and all that. And so, yeah, we're showing our stuff to the DOR every year, and we need their approval every year. So, I don't think everything is perfect here, but I also don't think that it's, so screwed up that there's a major
They were down like 9% last year and then up 11% this year, so really,
Rebound, basically. on
no, but I mean,
the-
totally, it's like, they really have not, you look over the past 5 years, that's really
almost-
it's totally
It's
stagnant.
almost equivalent to 2021.
Well, no, I mean, it's stagnant and the residential has increased over 5 years by like 36%.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to make sure that we did something, because like I said, it's the value of the land, everybody's land, and commercial has land too, so that should go up. The value of the materials are going up, so commercial is made out of these materials too. They need to bear, some of that increase also.
But the increase on the residential side is what we're seeing, like the market, unfortunately.
I do have a question. Have we evaluated other towns? I mean, is this what it looks like all around
Yeah.
us? And if we did a 5-year study of other cities that showed their commercial industrial, would
Like their
Deerfield, would
changes or
would
their
Deerfield look like
values?
this? Or East
Well,
Hampton?
I don't think
or-
anybody would have the same types of like changes up and down that we have, because that I think is particular to us, but in terms of their like collective values, are we talking about like the increase in that?
Yeah, like it's static for 5 years. Is every city around us, is their commercial industrial static for 5 years? Because we all are living in the same,
No, I
roughly-
think
roughly
what Randy's
same,
saying is that we had, so because we have such low sales, which is a lot of the data
but
that
it's, yeah, we've been told that though, we've been through this 4 years, sorry, that we're told that sales are a tiny portion of a complex process of evaluating property. It's not the sole value. How you
It's not the
determine
sole
this
thing,
is
but it's not
the,
tiny.
Well, it's
Well,
it's a fairly significant if you don't, I mean, I'm not sure what other data is.
well, data, that's what I mean. We're talking about data. You look at other cities and see, I would
Their
find it
data's based
surprising
on
to
their
see.
sales, so.
Right, but I'm
Based
saying,
on their
but,
sales.
yes, of course, but we look to other cities for best practices. We look to other cities to see if the trends are the same. Obviously, talking about percentages. So it would be surprising to me. I would love to see this from other cities and see if,
I did other cities that were near us.
okay,
So Deerfield's commercial over the last 5 years went up 21%. Berniston's was up 18%. Montague's was up 23%, but they have a split tax rate. East Hampton was up 14%. Northampton was up 18%.
Yeah,
And North Adams was just up 7%. Northfield was up 26%, and Irving was up 16% for commercial.
so we're
And do
abnormal.
they all use income and expense reporting? That's my question.
In theory, that's part of what their values are based on, yes.
Okay.
but I do think if you look at those communities, like specifically, you can see the development that's occurred in those communities over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, look at Deerfield, they've had Treehouse Brewery, they've had, I mean.
Deerfield has, but the.
Northfield has, Irving has, all of those communities that you've mentioned have had
Berniston?
significant development.
Yeah.
Berniston, yeah, they had a Dollar General built, they built a cannabis.
Well, we
thing.
built
They a
town,
Dollar
we
General.
have, like, a new, that town,
What, Town Fair Tire, that was already there, Arts Tires was there, they just built a new Town Fair Tire, but they didn't, it wasn't
we've had it,
total build.
and that, well,
I don't think we built anything, and that's part
I'm
of.
just saying
the
it's a
challenge.
useful tool to look at other cities. And when you see almost every city growing more and Greenfield not, we're answerable as elected officials
Yeah,
to the people in our town and the taxes they pay. So that's why I have to ask these questions, because we have a whole other question that we can go down later about abatements and fairness in the taxes people pay.
Well, the thing about it is though, I see you guys looking at the report and looking at individual property values. It doesn't work that way. I know and it can in a sense, because if somebody has a question about their particular value, then they can come in and apply for an abatement, and that's when we look at their particular situation. But if you try to look at this and try to use some kind of like, oh, that looks like that and that looks like that, that is not, it's not as simple as that, and it.
No, I get it, but it shows inherent unfairness, and maybe it's not a huge scale. But when you look at a picture of a house that's like valued at 128,000, why? What the hell? I mean, I want to know, because I have retired people living next to me who have to pay, and millions taken off of Main Street properties, and we're giving people money back. We're giving, that's what an abatement is. We give people money back. And so when I see a large trend, and we tend to be giving back to business owners or multiple property owners, I mean, I have to ask those questions because they're
Well, an
upsetting.
abatement is not, I hear what you're saying, it's a reduction in taxes through a reduction in value. And so what they have to do is prove to us that the value shouldn't be what it is.
You got it.
So that's basically,
Yeah.
that's basically what we have to, how we have to, like what Randy's saying, like, there's a formula basis, the assessors are supposed to get the full
Right.
fair market value of the community. They have tools available to do that. It's not a perfect process, but the abatement process allows us to perfect it. The other thing that we have gotten away from, and I don't think this is unique to Greenfield, but I do want to mention it because I think it's notable, and Linda Bevan, who works for RRG, brought this to my attention in terms of, what the DOR used to require is a 10-year cyclical inspection where over 10, or it used to be shorter time. It used to be like 5, it used to be, well, we started with 5 years, I think, back in the day. Then it was 9, or now it's 10. But basically within that 10-year period, assessors are supposed to go into every single building, every single parcel, every single building, every single property, and they're supposed to get a true assessment, meaning a true measure list, assessment of the condition, everything. And that process, when I started in my career, that was a huge thing. I remember being, the assessors would go out and we'd get, collect that. It's becoming less and less and less where people are inclined to allow that. So we get less and less ability to go into people's homes. So I hear you when you're saying some of these values should be looked at. I think there probably could be those cases. We need to get into those places. And some of that is, we have, I think it's been brought up, we have a lot of people. I know there's people in my neighborhood who have built many things without permits. I mean, that's another piece. It's one thing if you don't get a permit at the outset, we don't pick up the new growth. But if Randy goes out every couple of years and gets in, then he can see that, what's been done. But if we don't, then we have to guess. And when I say guess, it's an estimate based on, data, but it's mostly based on sales. And if we only have 2 in a year and one of them's really low and one of them's really high, or both of them are super high, that's why Randy's saying we needed, that's why they wanted to go back and look further for all of those kind of
But like an abatement, specifically the whole list of abatements, are you making those off of calculations, or is someone actually, because someone's
All from
requesting?
applications of the
They have to
owner coming in
apply.
saying that I don't feel my value is accurate.
Right, and you actually physically look at them?
And we go out and inspect. That's actually a great deterrent to people that are,
Okay,
it's a great deterrent. I do them also. So it's a great deterrent to people to say, well, okay, then I'm gonna come in and I need to inspect your house inside and out. And so if they're pulling something, well, that's when you know what, I don't really need to come over. But if people that are serious, okay, that's what I want to
Come
know.
on over.
Because just because the assessor's coming over, everyone thinks, oh, my taxes are going up. I don't
Right,
wanna
right,
Well,
right,
that
yeah.
doesn't always happen. Because
right.
if you haven't upgraded your kitchens from the 1980 Home Depot kitchen that you had, 40 years ago, I need to know, because you're gonna get beat up when you go to sell. And people are gonna be like, oh, no, I'm not gonna give you this one. How about, 20,000 less because I gotta do this bathroom over, I gotta do this kitchen, So I need to have that information, and if you don't let me in to see it, then I don't get that. And what we find is a lot of times that's what happens. So now we've got a place that's, we have the value at 185 and it sells for 350. And now I have to figure out, well, what the heck's going on? At least I get to look at
Something like that.
the sales, pictures from, that are now available on the internet.
right.
And then I can make adjustments, but that's where I'm finding out about a lot of these things. So yeah, your neighbor moves out and they make a killing when they're gone.
Yeah.
And, now you're left over because you're still here and now you have. to
Your
deal with the
value goes skyrocketing when they just had a house that was.
Yes, you're paying more taxes, but your equity, you're building your equity too, bank wise. And so, it sort of has a, equal and opposite effect, or not. I don't know if it's necessarily equal, but, effects on both ends.
Depends on where you're at in your home ownership of how you feel about your equity being.
No, and again, I was speaking of specifically because these abatements came up this year.
So this is off a list of abatements you're talking about? Yeah, so every
And so
abatement.
this is still
application-
home? This
I
looks
hope
like a new
not for
home.
138, or 28,000.
And so did this have a percentage of completion applied to it? So that it wasn't fully
I think
assessed?
the house was on the wrong site. It changed the grade from B to B minus.
That was my question, because there's not much description on any
Picture
of
on
these.
GIS for this property either.
Yeah, so this, yeah, okay, I think what you said, I know that this happened, yeah, the inspector went out and there was he was unsure of which lot and put the house on the wrong lot. So it was a whole thing, I had to straighten out and take the value off of this and then put it to the correct one and then adjust the bills and all that, so, yeah, unfortunately, that did happen, but 128,000 is not the total value for this for the year. Yeah, 345 Log Plain Road. I think I was just talking to them because now everything is all messed up at their bank and their escrow is all screwed up. Because we also, unfortunately, we've been having trouble with Munis and we made adjustments in some of the abatements that we did last year and anyone that we did that to, because the Picket Lane sewer betterment didn't go on the bill. And everyone on Picket Lane got like a bill that was larger than it should have been. And yeah, I had to call and explain and send letters out and talk to people. And
Okay.
you know,
Let's talk about it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just,
but
we
that's part
see
of
a
what
lot,
happened.
I don't know what the
And so-
total amount of abatements back, but it's a lot of value. And perhaps I know that these are what the Board of Assessor meetings are for, but in the past, there hasn't been much motion or success in dealing with what seem like egregious instances of giving money back to or massive devaluation.
To show that other one that has essentially a whole second building. And so this is kind of where the next to my question earlier was there's a reason why a value would have jumped to now like 428,000. And then the final is 230. That's $200,000 change. And the reason for filing was large increase, and the answer was barn only 5% renovated. But I mean, I don't know when that picture was taken in comparison to this, but that's not a barn. That's a full second house put on the same property as the one right next to it. There's a reason why it went up up to 428 in the first place. And I mean, so I guess that would be the strange thing about the house to the right of that was the original. That's the addition. That's the second house, essentially. Yeah. So there's a reason, there must have been a reason why that jumped, that a person would say, well, that's a really large increase in my bill. And then it got reduced by $200,000. It's almost like as if that second building didn't exist at the time, but there wouldn't have been a reason for the increase to have been so large if it hadn't been triggered by something, whether it's
Right.
the building permit process.
Put the building on the wrong property.
Right. Well, that part didn't
What do you
say that in
mean
the
by
lease.
that? You're saying in the assessing records? I'm sorry, I'm.
Yeah, so the inspection, Dave went out and did the inspection.
Okay.
And there was a new property or new building,
Right.
and he put it on the wrong property.
Okay, but
The one that
That's
was
a
next-
second one?
that's a different issue? No, but
Because
to
these are
my,
two lots is what I was asking for. And the reason that it says it was, the recommendation was the barn was only 5% renovated.
is
Is-
it possible that when he went out, it was only 5% renovated and
You
not?
know, so this is something I gave to Ginny the other day, and those are, rolling comments, and it might not have all of the details in there. It's just what was left over by the time we got to the end of it.
Gotcha.
But I have brought up before, I have a concern with some of the commercial. The Patriot Care that I brought to your attention a little bit ago, that was sold for 2 million and they put 1.7 million of renovations in it. And it was purchased and particularly our downtown on Main Street. There's a lot of things on Main Street that have been devalued actually by RRG. That building on the corner of Miles and Main, it's a huge building. That RRG went out and looked at it and devalued it by 60%. That was several years ago. What's that?
Are we talking about 173 Main?
Yeah, 173 Main. It was to 1031 exchange.
And part of it was because of what it sold for, I think.
Well,
Why
it
the
was,
value was so low.
our assessors went out and looked at it and then it was sold as a 1031 exchange. And it was like a 70%, but that is that's the order that it went. There are a lot of the downtown Main Street properties, big ones that, we just lost the Wilson's building has come off of the tax rolls altogether.
Mhm.
And so to have, Dyer's building and something else reduced astronomically, in value by over half is concerning, because that isn't what is happening with a lot of the residences. And I definitely support a single tax rate. I do. I think that's how we're going to get things to come here. But I think that those income and expense reports must not always be accurate. Or something is off. The last one, it said due to a vacancy and whatever, and condition, well, it's like rewarding people for having vacancies. It's not, I don't think it's gonna work to our advantage. I don't know. I
Right,
think
but
that's
so-
a question.
Right, so I think we did, so I hear you, and I think we did I think we shared your concerns to an extent, I want to say, because I think that was one of the directives that, Randy's talking about what we did this year in terms of going back, because some of that is based on sales, and it's based on the information, this little bit of information that was available at the time that maybe wasn't really a
Right.
broad enough view of things.
Mhm.
And so we did go back and look at that. And so, I think you're seeing that this year in the reflection of the commercial increases. I think some of the residential, I know it stings, but the residential economy has been different during COVID and post-COVID. And I hope, and I think we are going to see a rebound on, the other types of properties like commercial and otherwise, but the demand has been on residential and even on.
I definitely think that's true. I just think that,
And that's why the sales are indicative of.
right, and they are selling, but, when we do have a commercial sale and it's not reflected, as in Patriot Care, that doesn't seem quite right.
I agree with that 1,000%. So
I mean,
hope
I
it was
brought that-
reflected properly
Huh?
because.
What's the address of that?
7 Legion Ave. I've brought that to everyone's attention, and I brought all the building permits that were $1.7 million. And then it sold, and I think it is still, it is a commercial building, and I believe it's still assessed for $290,000.
What was the address?
7 Legion Ave.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yep,
Where would the 290 come up? Well,
It's
would
never
there be
changed.
something, because it is it's a business, it's producing income, like Jenny's saying?
Yeah, that was that was an intra-corporation sale. So that was, a sale within the business.
Yeah, but why would that have, so that's not an arm's length sale, so that wouldn't
Exactly.
affected it,
That's exactly my point, is that it's not an arm's length sale.
right?
So you can't say that, oh, well, this value should be here because this is what it sold for.
But are you saying that sale drove down the value?
No, I'm saying that there's probably other stuff that were included in the sale that was more than just the real estate.
Okay. So why is that value correct? What?
it's like 200, it was valued at 290,000. It never changed after they did everything to it and opened it as a marijuana store and put $1.7 million in $1.7 million in building permits into it, and it never changed in value. Never. I brought it to the previous assessor's attention. And now, especially with the marijuana laws changing, it's one to look at. We'll go back. We can keep going, Randy.
I do have a couple of questions, just to be clear about the abatements. I'll ask them simultaneously. One is, what percentage of the owners that request abatements end up getting them? And the other is, do you go into all of the houses that you end up making a judgment about abatements on?
We don't do it unless we don't
Okay.
adjust their value unless we've done an
Great.
inspection. That's part of the process.
Okay.
If you're asking for an abatement, you're asking the assessors to come over to your house and look at things.
Okay, and what percentage of people who request them end up getting?
I don't have those
You don't have
statistics.
that.
Yeah, I never really kept track.
Do you have a,
I maybe have some historical information that if I had the time, I could go and produce those numbers for
but
you.
you don't have a sense of like if it's closer to 3% or closer to 33 or 60, like, you don't.
Do you know
don't
how
know.
many abatement applications we received?
Yeah, that's what they have in front of them.
Well,
That
then
was
that was
all
the
the
question.
applications that we received
Okay.
last year.
Got it.
And whether they were
Okay,
granted or
got it.
denied.
Gotcha,
Answers my
okay,
question.
thank you.
I bet every year is probably about 100. That would be my guess. I had them for like 10 years back.
So most people
About
who
100 a
request
year.
them get them. This is, just to be clear, this is everyone who requested them. The red ones are people who got no, the green ones are people who got yes. So if the majority of these are yeses, the majority of people.
Some of the values didn't change though. It says there's an abated value, but the final values didn't change, but that's just clerical, I guess.
Shall we go on with the
Yes.
presentation so that we actually can finish our meeting tonight? I think this is important.
I'm also showing the personal exemptions that we granted last year for 2023,
Veterans, okay.
the different ones that we have. So
We just had-
widow's clause 17 is surviving spouse, seniors, and, kids that had both their parents pass away. Hardship is clause 18, so people with, that aren't qualifying for any of the other exemptions that need help through a hardship situation. This whole qualification process is pretty extensive. Look into income and expenses before we go ahead and grant them, but we had 2 last year. We've got all the different veterans clauses. And I tried to put some information in there too, like the clause 22 is you have a disability that you got from your time in the service between 10 and 90%. So you
Yeah.
got 87 of those, it's 400 apiece. The clause 22A means that you had the loss of one hand, foot, or eye. That's a 750. The clause 22, that means you have specially adapted housing. I think that's 1250.
Mhm.
The Veterans Clause 22 is a full exemption. And we actually have got 8 of those and maybe even more next year because we had a couple of veterans that were too proud to get their exempt, even though they could have qualified for $1,000
Wow.
off. They didn't take it, and now that they
Oh my
passed away,
goodness.
the spouse is applying and they have passed away as a result of whatever disability or disease that they contracted when they're in the service, and now they're getting the full exemption. And then the 22E, which is the veterans that have 100%, they're considered 100% disabled. And we had 36 of those, so 13 blind. A lot of the people that qualify for the elderly, clause 41, that's $1,000. And then, of course, the senior work off is that last number.
Only 14. Like 14 people did, and that's gone up to,
I think that someone was in and dropped out, something happened.
and so we just have that many people. And I heard this year it went from people, it could go from 1,500 to 2,000.
Yeah, there was just a change in the limits.
Does that
So they're increasing
automatically,
that.
do we automatically go up to that, or is that something we need to adopt?
You need to adopt.
Adopt it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
And so then my last few prepared things were the tax rate. And this is the average single family value. And then these are just random values. And it's showing the difference or the amount of taxes we have between commercial and industrial. This is a factor of 1 and we're at 2052. And I wanted to do a little comparison if we did a split rate. So it shows basically, from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24.
Is there any way for you to make that bigger? Zoom in or something like that?
Right down the corner, bottom right,
Bottom right.
bottom right's a
I
little
see
plus
it's
and
like
minus
a-
slide.
Bring it up
Oh,
to
that.
Says
yeah.
63%.
slider.
Mhm.
That's it.
Great, thank you.
And so just basically showing the impact on all these different values and what the impact would be. And so, this is the comparison to last year, where the tax rate was 1965 for both. And if we went with a split rate with a factor of 1.1, it would be 1988 for residential and 2257. And then the value difference between residential and commercial there is in the middle. And so that's what we're seeing with an $806 difference.
Do you know
For
what
the-
factor Montague uses? Ginny
No.
just said Montague has a split rate.
I think it's like 1.2.
No, but I know
1.5,
Karen
well, maybe,
Tonelli, the
no, it's maybe
assessor.
bigger than that. It's like 1 point, it's,
Do you know what their commercial rate is by any chance?
no, I don't. I don't. I actually use that as a comp because they do that.
So then my next slide shows what we would have to do if we decided that we wanted to keep the residential rate at 1965. And then that's the factor that we would adopt, the 1.136. And then that would be the impact on the values. So residentially, we'd stay, there would be no value difference, and that's what that's showing you in the middle, because that rate is staying the same.
Right.
And, then the impact and the difference of the taxable value for commercial is what you're seeing right here is the impact of that on those different incremental values. And so I had planned on doing some other comparisons and information to other towns, which I do not have
I
prepared
think we
yet.
should do that though, based on, what Jenny was asking for.
And so I was thinking of what I had come up with as the two closest comparable towns were Gardner and South Hadley.
Okay.
So
Comparable in terms of,
in terms of population, and there's a few different factors that went into that, and those are the ones that matched the most closely to us. So I'll do those. But yeah, I can try and throw in, if I have the time, some more information about the surrounding communities and give you some type of comparison. I'm sure it's just a spreadsheet where I'd have to pick out the certain communities and I'd be able to put it out because I can get one that has all 351 municipalities in the state, and then I can choose the ones I want to display. And we can do something like that if you're interested.
I think Montague is probably 1.5 because their residential is 15.65 and their industrial, et cetera, is 23.78. So isn't that one?
Yeah, so just because you're having a split rate doesn't mean you have to take the whole thing, and that's what sounds like what they're doing. And that's why I was trying to show that, if we did a split rate, we don't have to go, full bore. We can just split it a little bit just to help, and not, because it's tough when you don't have, when you've got a lot of big places that are really just gonna, be a minor bump in the road for them to have that increase. But then you've got a lot of the mom and pop stores that you could put out of business for something like that, so.
I think we have enough industry at this point to, at least in my opinion, to justify it.
Enough large industry.
Right,
anyway.
exactly.
Are the large, like rental properties affected by a split tax rate? They're considered residential. Like you
They're
want to let them
really
do
considered residential.
isn't a building with more than 4 units considered commercial?
If you're renting, yeah.
If you're
If it's
renting, and so then they would
all-
fall more than 3?
It's 3 or
Right,
4.
more than 3 or more, yeah, because that came up, I was in Lenox and they had the whole short-term rental situation come up, and there was a controversy because of Airbnb and all the commercial places that were renting were saying, I want to be, taxed as commercial. And that was the bottom line, is the state law says that if you're renting more than 3 rooms, you're commercial.
So
So that doesn't
big
apply with
apart-
apartments.
big apartment buildings would or would not be?
Would not,
Apartments are classified differently, I think.
yeah, they're
Multifamily
considered
dwellings.
residential.
So a couple of questions. I'm not ready to vote split rate, like I'm not going to do that this year. And this is something that I'm very curious about, and think there's a lot of pros and cons and would take very seriously. So just a couple of questions for the future if we're considering, we consider this every year. So a few questions. One is, if a future council would want to switch to a split rate, like would we immediately be able to do that now? Like say this current council wanted to do that right now, we would immediately be able to do that. It doesn't require any additional work to what you have done. It's just we
It
can,
just changes the results of it.
Okay.
As far
You would
as
just set it
They attempted to do that one time, and it is done like that in November, and then people aren't expecting that, which is really hard.
Yeah.
It changes immediately, and I remember that year, it was like 2017 or something. People were up in arms.
what happened? What happened then?
So they voted on it one way, and then they had a meeting where a lot of business owners came, and then they rescinded it. Do you remember that?
I don't, but
I was at it, and it was fascinating, but it does happen immediately. And I listened to everything everybody said, and I thought, just like I plan my bills, I thought couldn't imagine having it was gonna be like a 1.25 or something split. And they rescinded it, and I was listening, there were some people that were, very well-spoken.
Yeah.
And they got up and they were like, this will change immediately because we set the rate and then the bills go out for January 1 with that factor in with what your assessment is and then what the factor is. And
We do it in February.
And then you have to make, you basically are
and
making them all of the
I mean,
first
I know I wouldn't
year.
have that extra myself.
It would be difficult,
Yeah.
especially. if it's-
Right, we were talking about how the quarterly bill works and how the preliminaries and estimate were paid last year.
Right.
Yeah.
But last year, there wasn't a split tax rate. And so any inconsistencies are made up in the third and fourth quarters.
Right.
Got it.
Any exemptions that we're granting, that's realized in the third and fourth quarter. The senior tax work-off is realized in the third and fourth quarter.
Got it.
And so,
Yeah.
when you're making that type of change, and then literally without no notice, if you're not forecasting and telling people, hey, you know what, the commercial, next year, we're probably going to a split tax rate. And then, okay, then they can maybe forecast and we could possibly adjust their bills so they're a little bit higher. And so that they'll see less of an impact in January and the January and March bill.
Wait, can you say that last piece? What could you do to help them anticipate?
We can try and adjust their bills so that we're estimating using a proposed split tax rate so that we're increasing their first and second quarter bills so that there's not a big shock in the third and fourth quarter after it happens.
But you really have no way to anticipate that the council will make that.
That's true.
vote.
Yeah, I'm not.
So-
That's what you're saying. If we
Clear,
were going
we
to
could
do it,
really do
it
that.
might behoove us to let people know
Uh-huh,
in
got it,
advance.
A year in
that-
advance.
That would also let you know in advance.
Considering exactly.
Yeah.
I would
Right.
know
Uh-huh.
if we were serious about adopting that, then I could make some type of adjustment, so it would be
Okay.
less of a huge impact in the third and fourth quarter for the affected businesses.
Okay, so we would take some, again, I take this all very seriously and I'm not about to vote to change, but I think this is an important topic and I want to know how it would happen. So we could theoretically vote after the budget season and say, what type of vote is that? If we intend to do something like.
So in the classification hearing, we say generally, Randy and the
now.
Board of Assessors and
Okay,
they come forward with a recommendation and generally we follow their recommendation. But I think it's a discussion. That's a good point. And then there's the other thing. So we have to vote on what we're doing this year in November or December.
Yeah.
And then, but if you were considering that, I think it would just be a good topic up for discussion.
For discussion.
The other thing, this maybe Randy could touch on for a minute, would be the residential exemption, so that people understood that. That's kind of a,
That's actually one of the things that I wanted to have a little bit more information about, that residential exemption. Because it doesn't really apply here in Greenfield. That's something that you use in a community that has a lot of non-present owners. They have a lot of second homes, and so they're kind of putting the burden on the people that have all the money that have the second homes and less on so that if you're living in a resort town, but you're a year-round resident, you're not bearing the same cost as all of these people that have all their second homes here. So your home, instead of being worth $1 million, are gonna say, no, it's worth the 250 that it would be if we didn't have the lake here or whatever attraction it is in Lennox. It was, I don't know, Tanglewood and all the different things that they have out there, because 30% of their single-family homes and condos were second homes. So we didn't even have it there, but that is where something like that would be more appropriate. And there's a publication that comes out from the Division of Local Services that had a great article about that residential exemption. And I'm plagiarizing some of that to give as a better example so that people can understand a little, that would be even a better explanation than what I just gave.
but we do have a lot of, I do think that is just for something, for a topic for, because we have an awful lot of absentee landlords, like, that don't live anywhere near here either.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of not the same.
Not in single family
That would be-
homes though, and rental.
Yeah,
No,
this is
not in- but in-
residential, so are we talking about commercial?
Well,
And the
no, they're like in
commercial exemption.
two and three families that are, I don't know. No?
Yeah, and that's
Not-
an investment property as opposed to a second home, and it's not really looked
Okay.
at the same way.
Okay, all right. Just to go over, it's a good thing so that people understand there's something to that. That's why it comes up. What does that mean, et cetera? Okay.
just about the split tax, a couple of other things. One, so the only way, if we were to do this, the only way to make it incremental, it's not like you, because I don't want people getting a huge, I wouldn't want people getting a huge tax bill at the beginning of the year unanticipated, like you're talking about. And so then my next question is there a way to make it incremental and not have such a big immediate impact? And my understanding is that it's set for the entire year, so it's not like, it couldn't be phased in throughout could it be phased in throughout the year is one question, I guess, and how to make it incremental, could it be phased in throughout the year is one way to make it incremental, projecting out several years and saying, this year we're starting with this factor and next year we're going to do a higher factor or something.
That's how
Something
you
like
would do it.
That's how you
So,
do it.
okay, if we want to ease it in, then, okay, we're going to choose less of a factor and build it up every year until we get to the point where we're comfortable and it's something that everyone can live with.
Okay,
But that would be one way that you could do it instead of just going to 1.25% like Montague, which is a big impact. And that's part of the other reason that I wanted to show you these different factors is that, you know, this is the impact that it's going to have. You know, so for instance, if we decided that we wanted to keep the tax rate the same, there's not much of an impact on residential side, but this is according to the number of dollars that you have, the impact that you're going to see, that's the amount your tax bill is going to.
Right, it's a tough balance, you know, wanting to. I've heard, you know, the arguments of, under the idea of like, well, it could hurt some businesses, right? Especially the small businesses, and that's a good argument to not do it. And then there's well, businesses can charge more money, whereas if more of the burden is on the residential part, you have a lot of fixed income folks. They're not getting an increase. Their taxes going up, their COLA is not, and especially, you know, retirees and stuff. So, you know, I've heard kind of from both avenues of who should absorb the costs and who should get the savings. And I just don't think we have the base right now to throw. I mean, it could be a small factor at some point, but I mean, maybe we get some more industry coming in now. I don't know, and that would help that base.
I do think the other factor is looking at that first chart is the undervaluation or potential undervaluation of commercial industrial property for many years could be seen as many years homeowners have been paying the increase. And there's that question again about fairness of who's absorbing it. And it seems to be the homeowners, at least there's the 5-year comparison. It may be worse. If you look at a 10-year comparison, it can be even worse. I don't know. So I think that's a factor to look at.
And 5 years ago, the residential was 73%, and this year it's 76%. I mean, you know, we are 27, the CIP was 27%, now it's 24.
Well, then another, I mean, kind of a comparison into that would, I guess, look like our profit analysis brought into any of this? Like I mean, the same building, same business, no sale, right? So you can't get that statistical data. How much of it is based on their profit? If all of a sudden this business that only had a, you know, net worth of X dollars is now 1.5 X dollars, do they get hit percentage wise on the value of their property?
And that's what the income and expense information that we're collecting every year is supposed to be used for.
okay.
So,
That the owner themselves fills out and turns in. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's self-reported.
Good, it's the data is that we get, that's correct.
Right, okay.
Do we have, this is I think my last question about split tax, but do we have, besides Montague, are there other municipalities that we're aware of that would be comparable that have a split tax that we're?
I think mostly when you get on the other side of 495, like when I was in Hopedale and all the towns around, even Hopedale, did we have a split rate? I think we did. We had a split rate, Mendon, Milford, all those southeast towns have split rates. Many of them do, but not too many in this, like Franklin County. I'm not sure there's any Franklin County towns that have split rates except Montague. I can't think of any others.
Do we know, have we ever had one? Does anyone know here?
I don't know, but
it's been a single.
It's always been single.
Okay.
But it has been talked about because the homeowners are having trouble. It is something that keeps coming up and the commercial has been what it was. It doesn't, no matter what we bring here, they seem to, we have this discussion at TIF meetings, et cetera. Anyways, onward. Let's go.
Challenging topic.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Sure.
I see on here that there's a couple that say given bill, but they're a corporation. To an individual person?
It's to the
Is it-
business.
was it
That was
billed
personal property.
incorrectly? Is
Yes,
that
so I
essentially
was
what it
doing some investigation and unfortunately, personal property needs some work. And when I looked into the system, I saw a lot of bills, like 17 or 18 bills that qualified. We have the personal property exemption. So if you're $10,000 worth of value or less, you're not getting a bill. But these were in excess of that value, and yet somehow they still didn't get a bill.
Right.
So I went and I sent them out bills just to make sure if they were supposed to be getting one, they did. And then the information came back that no, they're a corporation, which is exempt from taxation for personal property because it's handled on a state basis through the state. And
Gotcha.
so that particular one, yes, I sent it out because it appeared as though it was a bill that should have gone out.
Gotcha.
And so we did capture some more value with that and then expose, unfortunately, some additional understanding of the system that needs to happen as far as, they have like 3 different statuses, new and existing, and, exactly how it works in Patriot and how the people that are entering the information for us or putting it in there, like, needs to be looked at. And I sort of still need to come under a better understanding of how it's getting done. So it's RRG that enters all that information for us.
Gotcha.
But I've seen, things that aren't consistent. We had Wow frozen yogurt and they've been gone since 2016, but they still got a bill up until this year. And so then that's taxable money that we're committing that's never going to come in. We need to, and fortunately, when I looked at it, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Because I thought if there's this one and it didn't get picked up, how many more bills are we sending out to people that don't even exist anymore?
Right.
And it wasn't as bad as I thought, but there's definitely some cleanup that needs to be done there.
So we just to make that, what Randy's saying, so we have an outsourced assessing company, RJ, and we have been utilizing them, through our lean staff time, and I think they've been great. We have somebody training our new administrative person. But the idea was to have them alongside Randy as a new assessor for a defined period of time, and then eventually we would build our own assessing department.
That'd be great.
So I think that, if that's something of, a desired effect, we need to start thinking about that because we have 18 months left on the contract. But, we've never had a fully staffed or the level of staffing that you would need to have your own completely in-house assessing. Like if you look at a list of municipalities, 351 of them, I bet there's, I don't know how many, like a handful that don't outsource some aspect, whether it's your reval, your interim, they do some outsourcing. Having a full-time assessor and a half-time person or a three-quarter time person, we would never be able to, we need to build the assessing department, basically is what I'm saying.
Audrey was here and there were 3 people in the department, her, an inspector and a clerk.
Right.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line,
But during those years, we have legacy issues that we're picking up from
I know.
years of those
Right.
times. So we need to be careful about not just saying, oh, we can just go back to that and it'll be, that's
No, we-
causing some,
Yes.
it takes time for these things to kind of come out. And so assessing is something you need to stay after consistently. And so anyway, I'm just noting
we've had
that.
staffing issues in this department since before I got here.
Right.
I know.
So
Exactly.
Audrey was here and then even Kim came on and, as an inexperienced person who was here for X amount of time. And then she moved up when Audrey left. And then she was alone for a little while, I think, and then got Sandra, who has now left for Amherst. And so we were heavily relying on RRG because we had inadequate staff for several years and Kim was gone in August of 21 and I didn't get hired until May of 22. And so they were fulfilling a huge role where we just didn't have an assessor. And that's part of, why we're spending so much money with them because they were our whole show for a little while.
Right, but again, I just want to point out, when you say a lot of money, not in the big scheme of how much we would be costing to have to have a staffed assessing department. I mean, it's like, it's.
By yourself, right?
One staff person, it's the cost, I mean, we don't pay, benefits and all of that. So, and right now we have here with us, we have 4 people working with us. Is it 4 or 3? 3 people. Well, 4 with Harold.
RRG.
Yeah, we have 4 people that work with us from RRG.
Really?
So
We
it's
have
not
one
just.
person that comes in
I
every
think-
week for 6 hours.
That's right. That's what I-
Well,
And
no, I'm
Linda
talking,
and
Yeah.
Marina have put in, they've come one day a week.
right, no, but I'm just saying that, right, no, they're not here full time. I'm not by
Yeah.
any means saying they're here full time. I'm just saying
No.
the breadth of the service has been included, not just one person. There's been, it's like they have a
They have a
team
whole-
of people.
They have a whole team, but their team
Yeah.
isn't here. My question to Randy
Yeah.
is, do you know any more people that are going into this line
And
of assessing, into this line of work?
I'm trying to persuade everyone I can.
Okay, that was my
Because
question.
it's.
Alrighty. That, I
I
can
had
see
a
that.
woman contact me and she had a lot of experience doing title searches and was thinking to, she saw our assistant assessor ad, although at that time we kind of, went a different direction and now we have another clerk who we're training.
Right, well, it's our whole source of revenue. It's our revenue stream. That's how we pay the bills.
Yes.
So I mean, even though I know we've all been here longer than we want, we're gonna move on to the next thing in a minute. However, I mean, for everybody else, for us to do all of the other things, for every other department, we need our revenue stream first. And I so appreciate all the work that you have done and that you are doing. I can see that you could use some more, and that's why I asked if you had any friends that were in this. Because there's nothing like having people who are here that are interested in this community that aren't part of the larger firm with people that come and go. I think that personally, this is something that
I
I feel.
agree. I sum it up as, I'm here and I take ownership
Yes,
of Greenfield, but
Yeah.
these other places, they don't, and they're not here and they don't.
it's like, we don't outsource that many things. There's one thing,
Wow.
every now and again, we had to do that for something like that you brought up, but it really is nice. It's the person that you know that you say good morning to in the morning, and we're all counting on each other here. So if you know any friends.
Right, if
so-
you need an inspection and it's RRG, well, you've got to get in touch with the RRG
Yes.
person, and then within 2 weeks, you'll probably have the appointment set up, whereas if you call me, I can come out that afternoon.
Right.
And sometimes I have. So,
So, all
We
right,
have 18 months to figure it out.
18 months, good, no trouble at all. Drop in the bucket.
assessors are terribly, there's not enough assessors out there.
I know, I'm just
So,
saying, like,
that's-
we
yeah.
all have friends and children and so on and so forth, okay?
Yeah, my-
Onward, let's go on. And what is, did you
My
have
son
more
just
things?
graduated, he's an English major. I want to start taking him out and teaching assessing.
Okay, there you
You can't
go.
hire him because that's a conflict of interest, but.
I know, I totally understand that. I totally understand that. Okay,
Hey, well, I heard you talking about open space in the department head meeting. Because that's another thing that we're recommending is the different classes of property, and open space is one that we historically have never adopted.
okay. So, do you have more things that you would like to say to us on this? Because we know that you don't have the numbers yet, and we do have a few other things on our agenda. But I don't want to cut you off at all. So,
No, I'm pretty good, and I've gotten to the end of the information that I have
Thank you.
prepared, and the only other thing is just maybe getting more ideas to add to the presentation from some of the things that you were asking about.
I don't have any more ideas.
Oh, I
I
heard
think
one
you've done-
one comment about commercial being undervalued.
Commercials historically been undervalued. And I think, just personally, income and expense reports, sometimes for people who don't pull building permits, is a little problematic to me.
Mhm.
I just have to say that, in all honesty, that, if that happened, then maybe your income and expense report isn't perfect,
Mhm.
So I think it should be, from what I read, and I've just gone through that 101 course, because I find this whole.
Oh,
thing
really?
fascinating. Well, I read through the whole thing. I didn't take it, but I read through a page of it. And I thought there's 3 ways that you can look, I'm just talking just like the very tip of what you know. But there's three ways to do it. I'm thinking it isn't all working in my mind with just the income and expense. And so there's replacement costs, and I thought maybe a combination of whatever it is, because I don't think it's been working here for quite a while, in my humble opinion.
And I think we had
Yeah.
$30,000 set aside for an income and expense, look by, I'm not sure if it was RRG or
Yeah.
someone else from the past, that I don't know if that ever happened. But,
Right.
you know, that's part of what needs to happen. Even really, you know, and I've thought about this since 2012 when I started in Dalton. And, you know, even with second homes, another thing that you're doing, this is really income and expense survey, right? That we're sending out. We're
Yeah.
asking for truthful information back. And with second homes, you do the same thing.
Right.
And so you're asking, hey, describe the contents of your home so that I can come up with a value.
Right.
And as you can imagine, some of the returns that you get are better than others.
Well,
And so that's what we really need to do, is figure out which ones of those are the best ones. And if we could, and I had sufficient staff, like 5 more people, then I could analyze that and come up with, you know, here's the ones that I think are good. And here's the expenses that I think are legitimate. And you're over the average amount of expenses in your reporting back to me. So I'm not going to give you credit for that. And I could adjust things according to what I felt was more accurate. But that's a huge undertaking. And I really actually started to develop my own Access database to keep track of all the information. And, you know, well, I was only there for 6 months, so I never got to the end.
yeah,
But, you know, that was one of the things that I thought would be a good idea. But, you know, it's difficult because, you know, just like with inspections and improvements to your house, did you get a building permit? Yes or no? Well, you know, not everyone out there is giving you the best information. So we're doing the best that we can. And you're saying, yes, they're undervalued, but according to the information, the sales and Department of Revenue is looking at this every year and giving their stamp of approval on it. So I'm
Right,
okay,
right.
it might be undervalued, but hopefully we're not off by.
oh, no, I hope that we do fine tomorrow. I hope that we do fine, it all comes in tomorrow. But, you know, the methodology could use a little, not that, I don't mean you, I just.
No, I know what
in
you're
general.
saying, just the whole
In
process needs to be
general,
fine-tuned.
We're asking for that, and if you're not pulling those, why would I ever think that the income and expense report is gonna be spot on?
Right.
So there, and so I'm not gonna belabor that, I'm gonna say we'll go on to the next thing. Yeah.
Before we move on,
Okay,
I
wait.
want to iterate what you just said, just to thank you. Like, like having just talked to hundreds of people in precinct 1, I mean, schools are important. That's like the number one issue, schools and property taxes.
Property.
So what you're doing is what matters the most to voters.
Mhm.
And so just want to really, really stress that and really thank you for the work that you're doing with the limited capacity that you have.
Right,
I feel
and-
needed.
Yeah, no, you really are, like, you really are. And so when we ask for fairness in all this, please know that we're not shooting the messenger, like, at all. We're not shooting the messenger. And thank you, as your time goes on here, for doing anything that you can see to create fairness for homeowners.
And that's, you know, the bottom line of what I try to do as an assessor. That's all you can do is just try and be fair.
Mhm.
So I don't want anyone to pay for something that they don't have, pay for more than they should have. I don't want anyone to not pay for something that they do have. And so
Yeah,
that's what I'm
exactly.
trying to do, is just make sure that it's accurate. When I go out and do my inspections
Right.
or inspections of sales, I'm trying to match the data to what I see.
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. All righty then. I'm gonna move this, is that anything else? And Randy, thank you so much. Thank you, I'm very, very, very grateful. All righty then. So next on our agenda is repurposing $289,000 authorized for police station upgrades to the dispatch communication system. We all have that? All right.
Chris is somewhere?
Chris was going to, she was only going to be here she's actually flying out, I believe, early in the morning and staying here for the classification. So Councilor Ford, you will say left at 7:35. All right, we talked about this a little bit the last time, and then did we get more information on this? Yes,
Can I just ask, do we need to vote on these motions?
yes.
About the tax classification before we move on to the police station?
No, we do not need to vote
Okay.
on this
Got it.
yet because
So we don't have.
the Board of Assessors did not take their vote because they didn't get the
You know, we
information
can,
from
our
the,
recommendation to you.
from the DOR. Is it? Okay?
Something factor for. If you ever have any other questions, just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to do whatever I can to get more information.
Randy gets his
That's what
things
A lot of
right out.
assessing is stuff that people don't understand how it works. And so that's what I'm trying to do most of the time is just throw out education pieces to let people understand what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right. So here we are back to that. I'm going to read the order. The city council, upon recommendation of the mayor, in order to repurpose 289,000 police station upgrades, move that it be ordered that the city council approves the repurposing of the 289 previously authorized for the police station upgrades to be repurposed for dispatch communication system. It's a majority vote required, and the description is below. Did we get all the attachments that everybody needed? Okay. Do we have more thoughts on this? Or did the chief was here before, but I don't think he's here anymore.
I
Mhm.
I just want to recap what I think that I understand, and this is in response also to a question from the community. So at the last meeting, both the chiefs were here. They had, or at least Chief Haig had previously requested that the 906,000, the balance was the 845,000. And they stressed that what was really needed was the dispatch communication system and that they wouldn't come back to us with another, if this is kind of stating what I think was said, and am I getting this straight, Joel? That they aren't planning to come back for this, to make up this amount. This is what I'm recalling. Is that correct?
Not sure. What I am not sure about that. I was just sure that they needed the dispatch.
Yes.
That's what I'm sure about.
Yeah.
Do you know more that you'd like care to
I
share?
don't know the answer. I guess the original budget and the items that were laid out in that original capital order are not going to be accomplished with the current amount that they have, regardless of whether you move that 289 or not. But I would say that they will need more money if they want to continue with those other projects.
That seems logical to me too. And I mean, it makes sense to me that they would request it, but I want to take the chief at his word from last time, and I don't expect you to remember what he said, but
I remember.
we could go back and watch it. That's what I
When we
remember.
go home, we could go back and watch it again.
We could, if I'm remembering correctly. I was surprised that he said that.
I didn't honestly
Yeah,
remember the capital. I'm sure you're right.
That's
Council Bill, that's what I say. So, anybody want to speak on this? It sounded like they needed it. I'm going to vote in favor.
I mean, there's no point in us doing the rest of it if it's not.
Right.
We can't talk to each other in
Yeah.
an emergency. I think that's kind of important, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Bullhorn won't do it in this case. Okay. All right, so I read it. Is there a second on it? And then we can take a little vote.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All universal. I mean, unanimous. No abstentions and no no's. Okay. In order to approve the fiscal year 2023 prior year invoice for the Energy Millbrook Solar, move that it be ordered that the city approves the payment of a prior year invoice for GTR Greenfield Millbrook Solar LLC in the amount of $12,707.40 to be paid from fiscal year 24 Energy Millbrook Solar account. Combined income in combined income in the town yard and streetlights, electricity is $44,000, and that's a 2/3 vote. Did you want to speak on that, Director Warner? or-
That's actually the general fund one. I
Okay,
would speak to that.
okay, sorry.
No worries. So basically and Marlo, I'm sure will, I can speak to those, but basically we had, a solar array at Millbrook that became active in about a year ago. Gosh, I can't remember the time frame of it now, but I think it had been active for about 18 months before we'd actually started receiving bills. So we started getting bills, I think, in the spring this year, and we paid some of them. But some of them came in, after the end of the year. So one of them is this is a prior year bill of the 12,707. So this is going to come out of the energy budget for FY '24, even though it says solar account, bottom line energy.
Okay.
But we created a solar account so we could track the credits going forward, because we've just been reducing the energy lines in proportion, and it's been difficult to track it. So we need to have an account to track it. So basically that's it. So there's energy credits that we got in FY '23 that we have to pay for. And we received credits from National or Eversource in proportion to it. So the energy line was less, but now we have to pay for the credit side.
So is it a wash?
Well, there was money left in the energy budget at the
Right,
end of the
okay,
year.
okay,
Yes,
okay.
that got,
All right.
which is part of what made up the free
Okay,
cash.
got it,
Yes.
got it, okay.
Yes.
All right. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of this? Aye. Okay. All right. Order number FY 24-015. Upon recommendation of the mayor, in order to approve fiscal year 2023 prior year invoice sewer enterprise, move that it be ordered that the city approves the payment of the prior year invoice for GTR Greenfield Millbrook Solar LLC in the amount of $50,829.58 to be paid from fiscal year 24 WPCF Millbrook Solar account, and so on and so forth. Current balance in the electricity account is $85,490.12. This is a 2/3 vote.
Second,
And this is along the same line, but it's coming out of sewer enterprise, is that? Okay.
Marlon will speak to that a little bit.
See the sewer, and I think there's the water after this one.
Yep,
So, the credits, so the solar's up and running, obviously the late bills from the solar company. But basically the credits, majority of the credits that we receive going forward, solar credits we're putting into the system with that solar array is going towards this account right here at the wastewater treatment plant. By payment for electricity or trade for electricity in the future. And then 2 other of the water facilities, drinking water facilities. So that's why you decided to take it out of the retained earnings for water and sewer, because those 3 facilities are receiving all the credits going forward.
okay. Got it?
ID?
Correct, yes. We reallocated the Schedule Z. I don't know if Marlo said that, but we originally had them all coming out of wastewater treatment, but we didn't have enough utilization to use up the credits. So his credits were just amassing, and, we needed to basically distribute them over some other accounts. So that's what we did.
You could do my house, you could add it to the.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
I just want to say, I feel a little bit embarrassed saying this. I don't understand this. I completely trust this, and I'm happy to vote for it, but I want a name that I don't understand. I'm wondering if this is something that could be explained in a minute, or if this is just super complicated and it's not. I just can trust you.
I think I can explain it pretty quickly. So basically, we pay an electric utility, Eversource, a certain amount of money for energy. We built a solar array, and we entered into an agreement with a company to now purchase basically the credits at a lesser amount. So we get a credit, and then we basically have to buy those credits from the solar company, but it's less than what we would have paid the utility company. So
Okay.
that's how we save money. But
Okay.
we basically, the money we're not paying to Eversource, we're paying to GTR, but at 3 cents less a kilowatt hour.
Okay.
So that's basically it.
Okay, so rather than us.
So it's all out of
paying
NH.
To Eversource, we're paying to GTR Solar at a lesser amount through solar credits.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I dug in a little deeper, but I stopped right there. That was Carol's one, but I'm like, oh, that's scary.
I know.
Okay.
Yes.
Save money, good.
Yes, right.
Getting a savings.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, next one. The city council, upon recommendation of the mayor, in order to approve FY '23 prior year invoice water enterprise, move it be ordered that the city approves the payment of the prior year invoice for GTR Greenfield Millbrook Solar LLC in the amount of $21,778.99 to be paid from fiscal year water enterprise Millbrook Solar account, and so on and so forth. Current balance in the electricity account is, and that has a blank.
Oh, it does. Huh.
Yes.
What's happened?
Yes, I don't know what's in there, so
Water?
it's current balance.
Green River rather. That'd be-
Oh, maybe that's why I didn't put it, because I wasn't quite sure. So basically, we put it, I don't know, we're putting it in, we put it in Millbrook Solar, so we put it against, 5209?
It
That
says the
helping you?
account is, it says the account number is 5209.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So it's-
6,100, 4,540, that's Adams Hill.
6,100 what?
no, that's not the amount. What's the amount in the, what's the balance?
21,178.99.
Well, that's the amount we
No,
want.
no, what's the balance in that?
Oh, it's, I have to look it up.
I thought you were.
No, I was looking in this other spreadsheet.
Okay, I can get that for tomorrow night and make
Okay.
sure they get it in the order, Jenny. I'll have. a
But there's,
copy of the
but
order.
there's enough money in there to pay that, is that correct? Yes.
Yeah, for sure, right? In
In
the
that
energy,
case-
in the,
I'd have to look at Adams.
yeah, we did look at it.
Okay,
And when
so-
Angelica created the account, she looked at them,
All right,
made
so-
sure they balanced out.
With that caveat, I am in favor, okay? I'm gonna just take a vote on that so that we can move along. All those in favor of that?
Right.
Okay. Can somebody read the next one? Can you go on to the next one? I'm just gonna.
Yep, I can get that one. Order number fiscal year 24 -017. Upon recommendation of the mayor, in order to approve fiscal year 2023 prior year invoice Doherty, Wallace, Pillsbury, and Murphy PC. Move that it be ordered that the city approves the payment of the prior year invoices dated 6/9/23 for Doherty, Wallace, Pillsbury, and Murphy PC in the amount of $15,038.75 to be paid from fiscal year 24 legal town account number 01001510.5302. Current available in town legal is $84,725. 2/3 vote required.
I'll second. So. Discussion. Or further explanation. I saw an email from Catherine, there was explanations. And did you have further questions?
I do, yeah. So first of all, Diana, I wanted to apologize. I appreciate you putting this together, and today I responded to you and I said, I wanted more detail, and I would still love more detail, but I realized that in my initial request to you, I didn't ask for that specifically, and so I just wanted to name that this followed through with what I had asked, and next time I can be more specific. But I am wondering, and I'm also realizing I printed out the year-to-date payments for legal, and but I didn't bring it with me. It looked like, so I'm wondering, it looked like we spent 85,809 for invoices between August 9th and October 12th.
Mhm.
So
Is that accurate? Like, I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding this.
It is accurate.
Okay.
I'm kind of, I'm sorry, I'm listening to you, but I'm also thinking to myself right now, I'm not sure you actually can take this vote because we don't have that money. We no longer have that money in the legal account. So when I wrote the
Yeah,
order
no.
2 months ago, that was the balance. And now it occurs to me because I asked you to do a free cash vote to
Right.
transfer money in, that now there's only $8,500 in that account or something
Right.
south of that.
Right, so-
something like that. So yes, I think what you're saying, I don't know if I'm sharing, we're having this mind
Yeah.
connection, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
correct with what
Okay.
you're thinking. Yes.
So okay, good. So I'm going to, so that everyone else can share what we're thinking. I'm addressing the request later on in the agenda now because it's applicable. So I want to see if I'm understanding what's happened correctly. So one of the requests is to transfer $100,000 from free cash to the city attorney services, AKA legal. But we only have, so, okay, I'm just like baffled by the amount that we've spent. So if I'm understanding this right, we allocated 90,000 for the current fiscal year that we're in, that we're not even halfway through. 5,325 was added, so we had 95,325 total. 85,809 was spent between August 9th and October 12th. Or at least the invoices came due. I'm understanding that? Okay. So basically, I want to say what the mayor, basically the money was, I don't want to say we, because we didn't do it. Basically that money was depleted, the legal budget was depleted in 2 months. So that is why we now need to, in order to have any legal budget for the remainder of the year, we need to allocate this additional money from free cash. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't actually have the money to approve. I mean, I'm wondering what this.
You're correct, and that's
Okay.
my fault, and I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm not
it's-
upset with you.
No, I know,
Vote on
it's a
that.
timing, right, no, but I'm
Let's
just
take-
saying in terms, I should have noted that to you earlier, that the timing, yeah.
It's okay.
It's a lot.
All human.
Yeah, no, I'm not
In theory,
upset with
would it-
you. This is again,
I
not shooting.
put it in, we had the
Changing
money.
of the changing of the order of vote, would that have anything to do with it? I mean, if we were to.
No, I think you have to table it now.
Let's table this.
And move
Okay.
it, we'll have to move it to after the other vote, which is
It can't
not
be
gonna
simultaneous?
happen.
Well, we can ask the clerk tomorrow.
Tomorrow only first reading?
Tomorrow is only gonna be first reading of free cash vote,
that's
yeah,
right.
so
Okay.
we'd have to wait.
Right.
All right,
Which is, it's not a huge deal.
I know.
We're waiting, but to Catherine's point, she's
Plenty of
correct
money, clearly.
in this, and she's also correct in the fact that if we do not have any money put back into the legal budget, not only can we not pay this prior year bill, but we also can't pay any bills going forward. We basically, for all intents and purposes, have no legal money, because that isn't enough to pay like one bill, that.
And what do you need? I have, 485 will be left in free cash,
Yeah, like
485, you can't. No,
I'm taking 100 out of that already.
right,
That's why
but
I took it from-
so it all requires the same amount of notice from free cash, even if you were to pay, you can't pay the bill from free cash.
Oh, it doesn't, it still would require the same notice for
Okay, that's all I
any
want, the
financial
notice.
order.
The notice,
requires,
okay,
yeah.
thank you so much.
So this 100, all right. Now I had this, now I've lost it, but this 100 that's being requested is to cover what's already been spent?
No, it's
Oh, just to replenish it,
yeah,
got it.
just to replenish it. And well, it is also this 15,000 has been spent.
Right.
This is the only thing that has been spent.
Okay.
A couple of other questions.
Go ahead.
There isn't a the city attorney account is the same thing as the legal account. There's not two different.
Correct. Well, we have two different
Two
accounts, but one is labor, one is distinctive or distinguished as labor, and one is general. And so I'm talking about the general, although in all honesty, the labor account is also going to be depleted and will likely need more funds. But that's on a different purpose. That's all personnel related, and that's all toward negotiations and, things like that.
Okay. And And what is the $15,000 now that we can't vote on it, but we're talking about it?
Yeah, so it's again, it's just the summary from the bill was, we were talking about, CC municipal compliance. So that's the Cannabis Control Commission. Like we're working on our host agreements because they changed the marijuana regulations. So now our host agreements need to come in compliance. So we're working on that. The CSX license agreement issues, that's the right of way stuff for the fire station. CSX is the rail line that runs next to the fire station. So we had to have an easement or license agreement, I believe, to be over in that area. The gift parcel land acquisition was the one for Bungalow Ave that T-Ball was that they had given us a gift and we never actuated or effectuated. I don't know. It never came to fruition. And then we ended up, I think, giving it back, or I'm not sure, but it was a legal process. There was some contention about the local option acceptance with the school committee vote and the city council vote when we were voting the budget. So that's that issue. And then we've just had some procurement and contracts, just general stuff that we're working on, and then open meeting law complaints are just general too. But so I did try to do a summary. You guys, as the counselors, again, can ask for unredacted copies of the invoices if you wanted the detail invoices. But if you wanted to put something out to the public, I wanted to try to give you some kind of summary.
Okay.
For that.
Thank you.
One request with that, especially, I mean, I don't know CC and CSX, and I know you just said, and especially for folks that are new on the council, those acronyms, could you spell out the acronyms from now on? It would be incredibly helpful.
So CCC is the Cannabis Commission.
Yeah.
CSX is the name of the railroad.
Yeah. So
Okay.
And I can't,
You just said
I
that.
don't know what CSX stands for. I think it's CSX.
It's like,
No, it's like
Yeah.
Pan Am or, yeah.
yeah.
That's a very good point, though.
With that would make it just anything, just as much, I mean, transparency, I think, is a value that we all share going forward. And so anything that you can do to do that, assume that we know not.
And what I'm going to do too, is I'm going to create, and I said this before and I didn't actually get to it, but I do, now that I'm, have put together like a summary, like, so each bill now, I'm going to do like a summary. I gave you something, I'm gonna do it in a better kind of spreadsheet. I just gave you a kind of synopsis recently, but so each bill, I'm gonna try to summarize and have available if people wanna know what your topics are.
I think that's a very good point, though. I found that when I was talking to people, that I would say things that I thought, I don't know why I thought people might know that, but when I said like CDBG, and people were like, what is that?
Yeah.
And CPA, and I think we did talk about that in light of, like having an orientation for new counselors, that there are an awful lot of initials. So that's community, the CPA is community preservation, and the CCC is the Cannabis Commission. I don't know.
Control Commission?
Cannabis Control Commission. So, but that's just, thank you for saying that. Any more on that? No. Okay,
Are we going to table that one?
so we're gonna table, I'll move to table that.
Second.
Everybody in favor, anybody in favor of tabling that?
Yep.
Okay. Opposed? No. Okay. So next, will you read the next one? The
Yes, that is.
recommendation on the MOU.
Okay.
Do you want me to do
Is it
it?
this one? 18-100?
018.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fiscal year 24 order number, fiscal year 24018, on recommendation of the mayor, an order pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 150E, what is that, 7, to approve the first year cost items for a settled CBA. Move that it be ordered pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 150E. Is that a chapter? I should know, that's 7, that the city council approve the memorandum of understanding, MOU, section, thank you, between the city of Greenfield and United Public Service Employees Union representing the Department of Public Works, DPW, and transfer contract stabilization, $15,200 to parks, permanent salaries, wages, full-time, line item 0100.4380.5111 and 10,000 to wages custodians, line item 0100.1920.5113 for a total of 25,200 to fund the first year cost items. 2/3 vote required.
Second that.
Actually waded through a lot of that. Yes, that sounded okay. And we have a balance to cover that. Any discussion on this? All of that work, there's like so many pages and any question, anybody have any questions on it? Okay. Well, I'm glad that folks are getting, no, I'm glad that folks are getting raises and that looks like pretty good. Okay, so I'm in, I'm in favor of that and, so let's, any further discussion, take a vote. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, abstaining, none. All right. Okay, so next I have, this is committee chair agenda. Oh, we have first readings, but I have, can I ask something before we go to first readings? What is the story with capital?
In terms of,
Like, normally, we'd already have started. Is there a holdup on the capital committee or?
there was a holdup in getting the school capital. I just got it Monday.
Okay. All right, it's okay. I just occurred to me when we were going to first reading of capital stabilization. So the rest of these are first readings. I don't know that I actually have to read them out loud. Do I have to read them out loud go ahead?
I just want to follow up on your question so I understand it. So when you say that what's up with like the timeline, would the capital improvement committee have already started meeting at this
Yeah,
time?
generally we start like this week or so. I get everything ready. So I had sent the request out September 1st. I heard back from Christine, I think, maybe the Devarge, like perhaps it was past the date that it was due, which was October 27th. And she told me she'd have some items for me, but she didn't have them at that time, so she didn't get them to me till Monday. So I haven't been able to, put it all together now.
Right. So, it was sort of an artificial timeline that we had with this anyways, to have it done last year by December. I remember coming back from something, we had to vote.
Yeah.
Because I was not chair of Ways and Means, Chris was, but I wanted to hear it because I wanted to hear the debate because I'd be chairing Ways and Means. So now, may I just ask you that? Do you have an idea of when we should be doing this?
Well, so I will put the packet together and probably just send out a meeting, send out a request. I'm hoping by tomorrow or the next day at the latest to say, we need to get a meeting together. So we'll start meeting. I mean, and we have plenty of time, we allow plenty of time for the process to take place. But because I think you guys had last year, you had scheduled there was like 2 or 4, maybe 3 or 4 weeks of meetings, times. But yes, and then it's only, I guess it's just 4 people and myself, so.
Okay. So it's just hard through December. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
So all right, so we'll talk about that. All right, onward.
Yeah.
Go, yes?
So I was remembering our conversation about this near the end of Ways, I don't know if it was after our budget vote or when exactly it was. I remember the conversation, but I couldn't quite remember the rationale. But this possibility of moving the operating budget to June and the capital improvement to January, the purpose of that would be to have continuity with the chair of Ways and Means. Is that?
I do. I think it's a better idea.
So
Discussing that.
right now,
Yeah.
No, but I mean, is that on the agenda?
it's under discussion.
It's under discussion items, yeah.
Okay. I mean,
We didn't put this on tomorrow's agenda?
no, it's under, well,
I think it's on our,
I put it up for discussion. I put it, and maybe that's probably why it's the next thing here. I actually am wondering whether or not we should do that because there's somebody else that's going to be chairing Ways and Means, and then that person kind of has to come in. That's what I did last year. I had to be there, be silent all during the meetings because I wasn't a member of that little team. And yet I was gonna take over, you know,
I remember that.
and that's not in the charter. It is not in the charter when the capital committee meets and decides things. It is in the charter about the timing of the operating budget. And many municipalities have their operating budget come out in June.
But we just did it earlier so we'd have more time in case like corrections, isn't that what?
Well, I don't
understood? Why it got pushed back?
I don't actually know the reason that it got pushed back. I know that it is.
Mhm.
And I know that many other municipalities do it in June, probably for a couple of reasons, because you sort of know a little bit better where you are, gives you a little bit more time. But I know a lot of the MMA schedules, which was why the mayor was coming in from afar, because there's a mayor's meeting that's always scheduled in May. So I just asked about that, but that would be a charter change, I think.
Well,
The actual operating budget.
but would we have to do a charter change? Because the charter just has the deadline, right? Of the end of June.
It's like, I'd have to look at the language. Oh, the charter's in my.
It has more language. It has,
It's more,
it has
90
timing.
days.
Yeah, it's like 90 days
From the-
for this and 180 days, and then it's like this. And so it gets you to that point, but it's backed into by several other date-driven things. And actually, it says that, it does say, as far as the capital plan, it says the mayor, including all officers, boards, and committees, including the mayor and school committee, shall by February 1st of each year give to the committee on forms prepared by information concerning all anticipated projects. So it says by February 1st, so I'm not sure why.
Yes,
You have to do it in December.
right. So,
Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Yes.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why I thought the operating had that same kind of thing, like by this date,
But
it has to be submitted.
there is something, so there is something in the charter on the actual operating budget, and it has, I know that. It's like, if we don't approve it, it gets approved. And that's just the operating budget. So,
So
That
we
being
could hope to
said-
move the capital one this year, but
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to move operating this year because that charter change isn't gonna happen overnight.
but I'll see if I can find that.
But what I'm saying now is the language in your capital planning thing says that it has to be submitted by February 1st. So it's a different time than how we're doing it.
It is, I know it is a different time than we're doing it. And last year, well, I had the feeling it was preferred that, well, never mind, I'm not gonna go there.
Oh,
I- I saw-
I think that's very interesting.
It is-
I'm about following the stuff. I like to follow.
Okay, so, yes, I actually saw that myself, and I brought it to the attention of others. Because there will be a new chair of, in all likelihood, there may be a new chair of the school committee also, which would change the makeup of the capital committee.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
and so,
This is getting our organizations in line.
well, no, but I think you might, you know,
Okay,
I don't think that it should be me that's doing that. In all honesty, it
Yeah.
feels like you're taking two bites out of an apple, as Sheila would
Appreciate
say.
that.
Okay?
I agree with you.
I think that's really a fair thing. And I don't think that for the good of the whole, I think that's fairer to do it after. I think it's fairer for the citizens of the city.
So let me just understand what the law would be, that people are sworn in January 2nd.
That's correct.
Do we have our organizational meeting that same day,
That night.
that night?
Well, for president, vice president,
Yeah,
and then committee chairs built after that.
okay. And so we would have to decide president, vice president, decide committee chairs, and complete the capital budget by February 1st.
Which you're very capable of doing.
I agree, I
No.
agree.
No, you would have to complete it by February 1st. That's when it's due to the committee. on the form. So then the committee after that considers the relative need impact timing is the capital plan.
Oh, so the
So it's
information,
intended right now for your budget, which is due January, if I'm reading this correctly, and I don't have the budget stuff in front of me, that's due January 15th. Your capital is actually due after that. It's due February 1st. So, but for some reason, we're doing it ahead of time.
wait, so what you're saying, so the mayor's operating budget is due January 15th and the capital budget is due February 1st?
The mayor's budget isn't due January 15th. It's due March 31st, I think.
Yeah,
It's
because
due,
the-
the department head, the budget is due
Yeah.
into the administration, like from the department on January 15th.
Every year.
So it's when we start consider, so it's when it's due to us to start. considering.
Okay, so the department heads have to give their budget to the mayor, the operating budget, by January 15th, and the mayor's budget comes out March 31st.
I believe that's
Operating.
around that time, yes.
Okay, and the February 1st date is that the capital budget needs to go to the capital improvement committee by February 1st.
Correct.
Oh, so we don't, even though I completely agree that
Sure,
we
the
could do
capital
that.
request
we have
is
to.
Well, we're not doing it on that timing. Right now,
Right.
they were due, October 27th.
Right. Way ahead.
We've been way ahead of it for years.
Yes, we have, and I thought, I said last year that it was artificial. I said that. in
Yeah, I feel
everything
like
to get it
I feel like
done,
that's part of the reason why it
get done.
becomes
Well,
tough by the
But
time
I
you
think
get
it's
on to the vote
interesting
session.
because I think it's a different approach if you do capital after you do your operating budget.
Say that again? Can you, I didn't hear you.
I think it's a different approach. I think municipalities often do capital on a different schedule. They do it like Jenny said, they'll do it, well, I don't know if you did say this, but they'll do like a spring town meeting for their operating budget, and then they'll do a fall, generally look at capital. Like they don't, they do it at different schedules. And I guess all I'm saying is I think when you do the order that you do things has an impact. So if you did your operating budget first, or you had the administration presumably would have the materials for the operating budget before we would get the materials for the capital budget. So I just think that could impact the decisions around spending, I think. I don't know, I'm not saying good or bad or indifferent. I just think they could.
They could, actually.
Yeah.
And we've been short on our operating sometimes. I mean, that's true because of capital expenditures.
Mm-hmm. And that was that was a factor that was this year. That was a factor in saying we need to look at the budgets. Like, I think that's Dior's language, or the language that says that those two budgets should be looked at. They inform one another.
Well, yeah, because we're getting operating numbers kind of coming in the midst of us voting on capital. So then you're trying to take that into consideration when you're voting on capital, when
Yes.
operating has been hashed out.
We did that.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely think about that. But the only part that's charter bound is this: no later than 90 days before the city's before the start of the city's fiscal year, the mayor shall submit to the city council a proposed operating budget for the ensuing fiscal year with an accompanying budget measure, blah, blah, blah. The notice, everything has to be published at the same time, and then it's when it has to be voted on.
Which is happening. It's
April, so it's April 1, May, June, so it has to be approximately April 1, right?
yeah. Which is
March 31st.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Be 90 days.
So we don't actually know why we're using the timing that we're using.
Oh, March 31st.
Not on capital, I don't know. I mean, I know why we're using the timing on the chart, it's in
Yeah.
the charter. I don't know
Yeah.
why we're doing capital on this schedule, except I presume there was some reasoning maybe to try to do it before we got into the budget process.
Can I ask Marla? I'm curious if in terms of your life and how you put things forward, how this, like, if there's a flow for you or how this impacts as a department head.
I can only give you my opinion. I think we since I've been in Greenfield, we did it differently in Hadley. We did capital in October, as Dee had mentioned, and we did operating in May. But I think the wanting to get it done, like most of the meetings with capital committee before the holidays. And then when you go into January, like I said, it's crazy meetings for everybody in a short amount of time, the way we're doing it now. And we're getting a lot of the capital out of the way before the first of the year going through the process. So I think in my opinion, and this is just me on a long day, thinking out loud, I think we're gonna be even cramped even tighter to put the capital out February 1st, as opposed to we're kind of putting it out now, we're going through CIP and then we get it out. It's more of a flow, I think, just in my opinion. I mean, and I'm one department head that generally has a lot of capital.
Yeah, they just
because of
would
the
be
nature.
running concurrently. The processes for department heads, they would be due, you know, the information would be due very close together. And so that's why I think,
Yeah.
especially for Marlo, I think he's a good person to ask because this is great impact.
So if we do move it to the capital to January, which I'm inclined to do because of the different leadership that thank you for answering the question, Andrea. We would have to, we would have to add that extra month in from May to June in order to not make it.
You could still have your, I mean, the department heads could still have their requests.
Right, we can still do capital committees, just do forward, or am I wrong in saying that was February 1st, what you were saying?
Well, I'm saying if they were due for February 1st, then I would assume that, what do you mean? I just think we'd just be doing the process we do in the fall, we would be doing it in the spring, and we'd be doing that sort of concurrently with the operating budget. So not only for the departments, but also for you folks, or for the people that are on the capital planning committee, that's also gonna be an additional. But I'm not saying it's insurmountable, but it's just.
I mean, couldn't really, the only thing we'd be changing is the capital planning committee meet in January instead of December.
Yeah.
We could still have the submittals. I mean, if it's not October 27th, you could make it what, November
Yeah, we could change the
27th
submittal dates
or
up
something?
to February 1st, but not
Right.
past, and yeah.
Right.
we can change that.
Have them in earlier.
I mean, even if you had them in earlier, still, it doesn't hurt, but
I forget, when is the capital due to the council in Ways and Means?
Well,
Because there's,
so we'd always vote on capital in April, like we'd be voting on
Right.
capital in April and something in May. However, I just will say, I mean, this is like my second or third year and I'm looking, I thought we bought, I'm gonna call them toys for what lack of a better word, and they're not. But you know what I'm saying? We're buying this or we're buying that, but if we don't have money to pay the people that we're
Yeah.
working,
Yeah.
this is an important item. And I know that we needed many of the things that we needed, and I thought, you do have to think about it all at once, but we have our stabilizations account. I don't know, it's like you can spend next month's money, but not next year's, and sometimes we've been doing, you know what I'm saying?
I think that, you know, what we've noticed, Marlo and I have had several conversations about this, but they're definitely, I think one of the things you're hitting on, and we do need to do better, is that we have been, and especially with the advent of CPA, we have been, you know, just adding like projects, facilities, and assets like crazy without really the proper attention to the operation side of the
I think it's
budget.
the first thing
And
that
so.
comes first.
And it's, so I'm not sure, I don't know if changing, you know, the timing but I do recognize that that's something we have been talking a lot about with the FY25 budget, and how, you know, I have a list of things basically that I feel that we've built or assets we own that we should be caring for before we add, you know, more assets. I understand people want them, but.
yeah, I think that needs to be kind of put into
gotta-
a lot of thought with, I mean, not that I think we're gonna have money to do anything large for like the next decade, but it is those questions that get asked after the fact or get found out after the fact. I mean, we run into it where I'm working, we have a new development. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of the questions that were asked after even the library was built was, well, what about this maintenance? Like,
Right.
Yes.
But, you know, and so this brand new building that we have in the housing authority is huge and it's nice and it's beautiful. But now that we're getting to the point of our warranty period's over and we have to start doing all of this stuff ourselves, now you're seeing contracts for keeping up, you know, your elevators, your generators, your maintenance, your scheduled maintenance on all of these things that a lot of times I don't think get considered in the architecture phase, you know, or that kind of planning phase, is really knowing not just what the building's gonna cost to put up, but what the long-term addition to that is. And I think that, yeah, we've seen questions, you know, from members of the community who've asked that same, like, how are we paying for these? Good, we paid for the building. Good, we found a way to fund the staff, but then there's all these.
We had to add
Extra
custodial
costs.
services for the library. That's what I remember, outsourcing that, and I went, this was not anything that anybody had talked about, and we don't have a plan for cleaning
Right.
the garage. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I actually was reading about how to do that myself. I did. I thought I'm gonna put on my little yellow vest and I'm gonna get up there, but whatever.
We're not gonna do that.
I know, I'm annoyed.
We're gonna have way more things that are gonna be pressing than that. I appreciate that. And also it could be a union thing, unless you wanna go with them.
No, I'm thinking, I do think that we should be looking, I've often thought that it was in improper order.
Mhm.
I mean, I thought that definitely this year, but I also thought it last year. You know, I don't know. So that being said, I'm looking at this and there's I think it's one word that would need to change on this. I don't think that this is, I think we could do it without David. I think there's one word that would need to be changed in this. You get the operating budget 90 days before, and instead of giving the message 60 days afterwards, you could do it 90 days afterwards. You know, you have to do it before the end of the fiscal year. You know, you have to do it in June. It's a one-word change. If the city council fails to take action with respect to any item in the proposed budget within 60 days after it receives the proposed budget, it could be 90. That's like not rocket science, and it would push the whole thing up, and you'd know where you were in your budget closer to the
You
end.
have the third quarter numbers.
Yep, almost,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? Anyways, it's on page 20, but I do want to tell you this, that Kathy Scott always puts, when you're running the meetings, Kathy Scott always puts the charter in this green
Oh, good.
book, so that everybody will have that at their fingertips.
Thought you walked there with the charge rate.
No, and this is- I think it's nice to know what Kathy's thinking of us. She has it in here in case we ever have to refer to it. It's in this green packet.
I want to understand that number. So from 60 to 90, does that, what,
So the mayor has to get us the operating at the end of March,
yeah,
and we have to act on that within 60 days.
okay, that's
Or
what I
it
thought.
just goes through.
Yes.
Okay,
So we're saying we could put it to,
90.
I mean, maybe even if it's not 90, because wouldn't there still have to be a minute for submission, or could it really go to the wire on June?
Oh, no, a lot of people finish it, you know, it's in your June
Gotta
meeting.
get it done by June, so you gotta,
Right, no,
we'd
that's
have
what I
to,
mean.
yeah, I mean, so
That's why it
basically, if
wouldn't
you're
be
voting, if you're
maybe we
planning to
should
vote
go
it
like
in June
80
20th,
days?
you're leaving yourself very tight to the wire if you have to make any additional changes. So, you know, you'd have to have another meeting and vote it
Right.
for June
But
30th.
that's not up to me, but I think it's a very reasonable thing just to change the number.
How long does it take to change the charter?
Well, and then it goes to Boston.
Yeah.
And so it depends on, well, we could talk to our legislators. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes, honestly.
It's usually by an act at the state level, like 6 to 9 months, depending. So sometimes, I mean, they can be quicker if you put pressure on them and depending on what it is, but it usually takes at least, it's usually under a year, but yeah, about 6 to 9 months.
mhm.
And so for this year, if we begin in January, we have to still, given the current charter, we still have to vote in the May meeting
Well, those are
because
two
there's only the
different-
60.
Those are two different things, but we could start off trying and seeing if we could move it right away.
Capital.
Yeah, we could move the capital right away, but we could make the other thing and see what happens, see how quick the legislature moved, but that will be not. Yeah.
So if you move it to January, you'll still be voting at the same time? Am I hearing that right? What you're talking about?
I bet we'd be voting. I don't know.
You were talking about the capital?
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
so there is something that says that it has to be delivered to them 120 days before the end of the fiscal year. So it would still have to go, like you said, it's still gonna be.
But that's not in the charter. That's in the,
No, that's actually in the charter too. It's under,
under code?
finance and
Okay.
fiscal procedures. It's under a thing that says
It has to be delivered 120 days?
120 days before the end of the fiscal year.
That's 4 months.
Right, so that's it. Is that March?
I'm just gonna look at that.
March.
I wanna look at that
April,
again.
May,
Hold
June.
on.
Yeah, March 1st, March 1st.
So we don't vote for that right now until.
Well, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just due to the council? I don't.
That's no hard and fast rule that I know of, but let me go back and look at the book. back to
Under,
it.
let's see, where did I see that? Under fiscal, finance and fiscal procedures, under capital improvement program 510, it says, the mayor shall submit a capital improvement program to the city council at least 120 days before the start of each fiscal year.
Right. So that's
She
submitted
will
to us.
submit it,
Submitted,
but action on it.
yeah.
Say action on, does it have action on it?
No, just for the submittal. So just when the administration has to give it to the council.
So it's actually not due until March 1st, but we're having it set at February 1st?
First. Yeah, we're giving it earlier than that, I
January
think,
1st.
right, it's due March 1st.
I mean, trust me, I don't want to make budget season anymore.
But that only leaves a month. That's probably why the mayor or somebody, the administration backed it up.
Because if you think about it, if they were due February 1st, but due to the council March 1st, that only gives the committee and the mayor a
Oh.
month to make recommendations and do what they have to do. And we now have like at least, we have more time than that, a couple months anyway.
What's due March 1st? The mayor's budget or capital committee has to give it to the council?
The mayor has to submit a capital improvement program to the city council.
Which, meaning that the capital improvement committee has to already have gone through their process.
Exactly, right, because they get it, if they do it first, then they recommend to the mayor, then the mayor,
Makes cuts.
She picks.
she
Picks
makes,
and
yeah.
Okay.
recommendation.
So we can make a decision now to shift to January.
Mhm.
And if we're going to shift to January, we have to make a decision because otherwise it's gonna start fairly soon.
So what do you think? Well, I mean, this was a topic for discussion.
And
It wasn't something under motions, I don't think. But it's not here anyways. It's like, I don't think it's gonna happen.
And it's not like it's an ordinance, I mean, or a change of, like, do we have the jurisdiction to make this decision,
Yeah,
right?
it's just like an advisory, right? I mean, it's just what's being done is being done, but there's nowhere where it is written it has to be.
I think it's,
Well, except, are you talking about the capital stuff now? Well, I mean, we're well underway in the process and I had alerted people beginning September 1st, like what that process was going to
Right.
be. So, I mean,
Right.
you know, as far as that piece, I mean,
But the committee recommendations could hold off.
they could probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the committee may need to take more time or what. I mean, I do want to get the committee going just in case,
Yeah.
because like Jenny said, they're anticipating it, but.
Right.
well, it's not on you. It's, again, the shooting the messenger thing. It's not on you if we all decide to go later. Like, people might be upset that the requests were made.
Might be happy to have December back.
I
Yeah,
think people in general would be happy to have December back, but I also think who's
yeah,
leading that is probably very important to people.
I really appreciate that. Yeah. I've actually, given you pointing that out, I feel strongly that it start in January after the new leadership.
Right, there'll be a new leadership, there'll be a new person coming in two different parts
Yeah.
of this. It just doesn't seem ethical, actually.
How many meetings does the capital improvement committee have?
I think it kind of depends on the request, the number of requests. So they meet with each department head that makes requests. So this year we have probably 4, 5, maybe 5 or 6. We, you know, not every department makes a request. So police, fire, DPW, schools, recreation, And I think veterans maybe has something.
Oh, veterans did have something this year. The other really good part about having this be a little later, and I know because I was doing it, was the CPA and recreation, because there was a lot of things that came out of the CPA that went for recreation.
So
Not
they're
that,
in pre-application right now. for
Right.
CBA.
and so I was holding off. Kept talking to the CPA committee and asking them, like, when they were gonna know. Travis Drury was in charge of that. Well, I mean, there was a whole lot of people, but like, when were they gonna make their recommendations? Because we had so much, and they were good things that came up, but if it could come out of that, and there's a lot of, it just seemed like a kind of a good use of CPA funds. Recreational things, they'd put something to it. They are committed to put towards three different things. They are committed to put towards housing, they're committed to put towards historical and
Open space.
open
recreation.
space and recreation. But a lot of it actually did end up going to recreation. And sometimes when you're needing things like a truck for DPW, like, it was a balancing act. And I thought I would rather know that was but leading a team. I would rather know that was gonna, if it was gonna be paid for by somebody else, we'd say yes to whatever it was.
Right.
So,
I think the CPA should be coordinated more with the capital.
right,
And I think that this idea that, I mean, and I just, please, I'm a fairly conservative person, but I think the idea that this, and I appreciate the projects and stuff, but it isn't, we can't just be hands off of CPA either. I understand they make recommendations, but I'm fairly certain, it still goes to the legislative body. And so as Ways and Means, I think you have, an interest in just determining, just kind of reviewing they're creating capital projects basically on behalf of the city with a different funding source that ultimately we're going to have to maintain. Back to that conversation. So I agree with you. I'm saying I'm going a little further than what you just said. I know
no,
what you
that's
just
fine.
said, but I'm just saying, I think we should coordinate the asks, which I think is what you're saying.
Right.
And I think we ought to be, I think that you as the sort of I look at you as the finance committee of the city, like finance committees in towns. I think that, while there's this idea that CPA money is the special money and the committee decides, I still think it's a financial spend for the city that has an impact on us. And we have to at least consider that. And I don't think you guys have been like looking at CPA.
What was the first year?
Right.
It was the very
Well,
first
and I
year.
remember there being some discussion about being like, there's a different process and it's kind of like they're making recommendations. Let's just.
Well, no, they are supposed to be totally, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I actually knew that because I was chairing Ways and Means. So the requests were in this, we had the same request that they did.
Right.
And so I was like, when are you all voting? Like, I wasn't trying to influence that at all, but I said, when are you voting? Because,
It's going to determine our vote.
Right.
right, and then, I'm not gonna say anything else, but, read between the lines, one thing did depend upon the other.
Right.
And so, but they were the CPA, all the rules that went around creating that, they really were supposed to be an independent body. I totally get what you're saying. But one thing, I think it's the timing of it.
Yeah.
And theirs was gonna be, I kept asking them, are you gonna be done? Like, are we gonna know? And I was there watching the votes at the end so that I could, and I knew like it was like a night before. So at any rate, that might work out to everyone's advantage too.
So we can change, we can change this to January.
I think we're all saying that we'd like to do that.
I make a motion. 'Cause
Go ahead.
So therefore, I move that we begin the capital. I don't know what is within our jurisdiction to say, but what I would like to say is I would like to make a motion that the capital improvement process begin in January.
And I'm not sure if that's the thing I can, like,
Or do you mean the capital improvement committee meetings begin?
meetings begin in
Okay,
January.
did you share the second? Okay. I think,
Haven't met.
okay. I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea. Okay, good.
Well, you can vote it.
And we'll see what, trust me, we know what'll happen,
Yes.
okay? So, but we're gonna vote just the same, because
Yes.
actually,
Yeah, it's
Because-
delicious.
because if there's nobody there, it won't happen. Okay, so all those in favor? Okay? Aye. Okay, all right. There you go. So, okay, are there more things for today? Anything else? Did I miss?
Yeah, we have other discussions.
Okay, go ahead.
So would you like me to, I don't know what page they're on. They're way below the MOU.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so just the discussion. One is to transfer 0.5 million free cash to capital stabilization.
Right, those are all,
They're on first readings tomorrow anyway.
Yes, so do we need to discuss these?
we don't need to discuss them tonight, and I think we don't have to read them tonight, they will be read tomorrow night for first reading, but we actually don't, to the best of my knowledge, don't have to read them as a first reading in this mural.
Okay.
So we can read them silently.
I already had the first reading of it, so I'm not gonna do a second reading of it.
All of those will be read for the first time tomorrow night, and then we can take them up in December. Okay, and was there anything else, any new business or old business or anything else? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that was a very quick meeting. You got fast.